Chapter 2961. Since they decided to head to the Day-Night Land, Suzumo didn't delay and made some arrangements before leaving the Sword World with Kitsune, Immortal King Yulan, and Mulian. Although the Patriarch of the Academy wasn't dead, the Patriarch of the Academy didn't dare to show his face with Wu Dao's main body present. He couldn't deduce everything about Wu Dao's main body. With the Patriarch of the Academy's caution, he absolutely wouldn't dare to do anything to Qinglian's main body. As for the experts of the Heaven's Eye World, Stone World, and other super worlds, it was impossible for them to keep an eye on Suzumo at all times and control all his movements. Even the Great Emperor hadn't reached the level of omniscience. The Day-Night Land was relatively far from the Sword World. Even with Immortal King Yulan controlling the immortal boat and speeding through the spatial tunnel at full speed, it would still take a month. A month later, Suzumo's group of 4 arrived near the Day and Night Land. Looking into the distance, an ancient battlefield appeared before them with broken halberds and swords strewn all over the ground. Tattered flags that had been there for an unknown period of time were still flapping loudly. The battlefield stretched as far as the eye could see and was covered in corpses. One could vaguely imagine the scene of the battle back then. The battlefield was filled with strong killing intent and resentment, and it was also mixed with a blood-boiling battle intent. As soon as they approached the Day-Night Land, Suzumo could even hear the neighing of horses, the sound of iron hooves, the collision of weapons, the battle of the battlefield, and countless other clamorous sounds. These sounds seemed to have passed through the river of time and came from an ancient era, and it didn't dissipate for a long time. When Bai Mingshui heard these voices, her vision blurred for a moment. She seemed to see a group of cavalry in black armor, holding long spears and large swords at their waists. They stirred up clouds of dust and were full of murderous intent as they charged towards her. Kitsune suddenly felt a strong sense of danger, and her scalp went numb. She didn't have time to think and pulled out the sword on her back, and a sword hum resounded through the world. All of a sudden, a broad and thick hand landed on her palm, and it contained an irresistible force that forced her sword back into the sheath. The sword hum had just sounded when it stopped abruptly. "Be careful. Guard your Dao heart." Suzumo's voice rang in Kitsune's ears. Kitsune's heart trembled, and she instantly woke up. She took a closer look, but there was no black-armored cavalry in front of her. It was just an illusion. The battle cries coming from the night and day realm could even affect her mind. Kitsune broke out in a cold sweat. Even before entering the land of day and night, she had almost fallen for it. If not for her master's protection, she might have lost her Dao heart and fallen into a dangerous situation. It was too comfortable to stay in the Sword World all year round. This was also the reason why Suzumo wanted to bring Kitsune out to gain experience. It's daytime now, and the terrain inside is still quite clear. Find that spring water as soon as possible. Immortal King Yulan said, "If night falls, one's vision and divine sense will be obstructed. It will be much more difficult to find that spring water." Mu Lian also nodded and said, "In the daytime, if there is any danger, we will be able to detect it immediately. If it's night and visibility is extremely low, we will have to be careful." Suzumo, Kitsune, and Mu Lian immediately set off and entered the land of day and night. Soon, they disappeared from Immortal King Yulan's sight. Although the land of day and night was a battlefield in name, in reality, the scope of this battlefield was not much different from the divine firmament immortal realm. There were towering mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas, as well as many withered ancient trees and shrubs. In such a large battlefield, one could see shattered divine weapons and scattered bones with every step. It could be seen how tragic the battle back then was. Mu Lian walked in a direction according to her memory. As it was daytime, the 3 of them did not encounter any danger along the way. During this period, they also encountered living beings from other realms. Both sides covered their faces and were vigilant. They avoided each other and did not easily have any conflicts. As the battlefield of the ancient epic, the land of day and night naturally had many treasures buried inside. Since ancient times, many cultivators had braved the danger to enter the land of day and night to search for opportunities. Just half a day later, the situation changed. Without any warning, night fell and quickly enveloped the entire land of day and night. An extremely oppressive feeling surged into their hearts as well. Even Su Zimo frowned, let alone Kitsune and Mu Lien. The surroundings were dark and filled with a cold and dark power. The moment his spirit consciousness was released, it would be dissipated by the power and turned into nothingness. Given his vision as a grade 12 creation, Qinglian, the furthest he could see was only 1,000 feet. If that was the case for him, it was even worse for Kitsune and Mu Lien. The two of them could only see 100 feet away at most. Right then, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he channeled his essence spirit and channeled a secret skill. His left eye was pitch black while his right eye was pure white. The two visual techniques, illumination and nether fluorescence, were released at the same time. The illumination stone in his right eye did not react in the darkness. However, the nether fluorescence stone began to spin slowly, absorbing the cold and dark power in the darkness. The nether fluorescence stone was like a bottomless black hole that devoured the surrounding darkness continuously without any reaction. Back when he fought with the Academy Patriarch, Su Zimo had already discovered this. The two divine stones, illumination and nether fluorescence, devoured the Academy Patriarch's Emperor Level 6 Ding and 6 Jiaoshen without causing any ripples. Su Zimo did not interrupt the process. Although he could not activate the power of the nether fluorescence stone given his cultivation realm, it should not be a bad thing for the nether fluorescence stone to continue absorbing the surrounding power of darkness. Because the nether fluorescence stone devoured the darkness, Su Zimo was shrouded in endless darkness. Su Zimo followed beside Kitsune and Mu Lien, but others could not see him at all. That was because he had already fused with the surrounding darkness. Oh no, Peak Master Su is gone. As they walked, Mu Lien felt that something was amiss. Looking around, she realized that there was no trace of Su Zimo and could not help but exclaim in shock. This time she was really shocked. Su Zimo had disappeared silently. She did not notice at all. Master? Kitsune frowned slightly. For some reason, she felt that her master was nearby, but she could not see anything. There was only darkness. She tried to call out, but there was no response. It was as if her master had suddenly disappeared into thin air. What's going on? A trace of panic flashed across Mu Lien's eyes. She had mustered up her courage to enter the land of day and night again, mainly because she was accompanied by Su Zimo. Now, Su Zimo had mysteriously disappeared, and she did not know whether he was dead or alive. This made her instantly lose her confidence, and the fear of the land of day and night surged into her heart again. Kitsune could not explain it clearly. Logically speaking, even if her master encountered any danger, at the very least, he would make a sound and not disappear silently. Master should not be in danger. Kitsune quickly calmed down and slowly pulled out the long sword on her back. She muttered, "Let's continue forward. Be careful." Su Zimo deliberately did not appear because he wanted to see Kitsune's performance. He hid in the darkness and followed not far from the two of them, observing the surrounding movements. Because of the existence of the nether fluorescent stone, the surrounding darkness could no longer block his left eye's vision. Chapter 2962. Su Zimo followed beside Kitsune and Mu Lien and continued to walk forward. Not long after, Su Zimo's gaze turned. Through the fluorescent stones with his left eye, he saw that in the distant darkness, there was a group of hundreds of black-armored knights gathering and heading in the direction of the three of them. This time, it was not an illusion. Some of the corpses that had fallen here back then were awakened by the dark power here. These black-armored knights were broken. Some had no heads, some had broken arms, and some only had half of their bodies. They held rusty spears and broken swords in their hands. The warhorse under him was also riddled with holes. Only a broken skeleton was left, and it was covered in broken armor. Looking at the attire of these black-armored knights, they should be the cultivators of the dark world back then. These black-armored knights continued to approach in the direction of the three of them. Due to the obstruction of vision and divine sense, Kitsune and Mu Lien did not notice. Even the sound of the black-armored knights marching was dissipated by the surrounding dark power. As the black-armored knights continued to approach, just when the distance between the two sides was only 100 feet, the black-armored knights seemed to have discovered something. They stared at Su Zimo's position and stopped. The black-armored knights gradually put down the weapons in their hands and opened their mouths slightly, as if they were saying something. Su Zimo frowned slightly and moved closer in the direction of the black-armored knights. Darkness in the heart, light in the heart. The group of black-armored knights chanted repeatedly with pious looks on their faces. These 8 words had an indescribable power. When they were chanted by the black-armored knights who had fallen many years ago, it was full of endless tragedy and desolation. Darkness in the heart, light in the heart. Su Zimo murmured softly. What happened between the dark world and the light world back then? Su Zimo looked at these black-armored knights with a solemn expression. He cupped his hands slightly before turning to leave, following Kitsune and Mulyan. Along the way, the 3 of them encountered many wandering black-armored knights. However, these black-armored knights noticed Su Zimo hiding in the darkness and did not go forward to attack. Instead, they avoided him on their own. Although there was no trouble from the black-armored knights, Kitsune and Mulyan were still attacked by creatures from other realms and fought several times. After all, Mulyan was a supreme true spirit. Unless it was also a supreme true spirit or a half-step king, it was difficult to pose any threat to her. Although Kitsune was only at the great success stage of Wu Dao, she had already revealed the combat strength of a supreme true spirit. After several battles, Bai Mingshue's temperament had obviously changed, even though she had suffered some serious injuries. The killing intent of the Sword Dao and the valiance of the Martial Dao were gradually revealed. Especially in this complicated and harsh environment was a huge test for Kitsune's. She was facing the unknown, she could be in danger. Her life was on the line. She also had to face powerful enemies from different realms. From the beginning to the end, Su Zimo did not appear. Even when he saw Kitsune in danger, he did not rashly make a move. Instead, he let Kitsune rely on her own strength to resolve the crisis. He would only make a move if they encountered a powerful enemy that Kitsune and Mulyan could not deal with. Su Zimo observed carefully for a moment. Along the way, the creatures that Kitsune and Mulyan fought mostly came from the 3 realms, the Blood Realm, the Tomb Realm, and the Poison Realm. Among them, there were also scattered people from the Witch Realm. Moreover, as time passed, more and more people from the Blood Realm, Poison Realm, and Tomb Realm gathered in the darkness, showing signs of surrounding the 2 of them. It was somewhat unusual for so many people from the Blood Realm, Poison Realm, and Tomb Realm to appear in the daytime. From the looks of it, it's probably not a coincidence that Mulyan encountered people from the Blood Realm here. Su Zimo looked at the crowd that was constantly gathering in the distance and was deep in thought. If the Flower Realm's nether calamity poison came from the Poison Realm, what role did the Blood Realm and Tomb Realm play in this matter? Did this have anything to do with the Witch Realm? The 9 teams that the Flower Realm sent into the daytime were all annihilated. It seemed like the Poison Realm, Tomb Realm, and Blood Realm had something to do with it. Just as Su Zimo was pondering, Kitsune and Mulyan were surrounded by people from the Tomb Realm once more. More than a dozen Tomb Realm cultivators controlled the hideous battle corpses that reeked of the stench of rotting corpses to attack Bai Mingxue and Mulyan. In the darkness, Tomb Realm cultivators had the advantage. The cultivation and combat methods of the Tomb Realm cultivators were unusual. Although they cultivated themselves as well, they placed more importance on cultivating their battle corpses and controlling them to fight for them. Compared to the battle corpses that were immensely strong and filled with corpse poison, the Tomb Realm cultivators were relatively weak. That was their greatest weakness. However, in the daytime, that weakness was covered perfectly under the shroud of darkness. The true bodies of the Tomb Realm cultivators hid in the darkness and controlled their battle corpses to attack Kitsune and Mulyan continuously. Kitsune and Mulyan wanted to retaliate, but there was no way for them to do so. After being tempered by the Tomb Realm cultivators for many years, the battle corpses were already indestructible and were not inferior to divine weapons. Furthermore, the battle corpses were senseless and fearless. Even if they were covered in wounds from Kitsune's sword, they were oblivious and did not care at all. Their ferocity did not decrease at all. Although Kitsune and Mulyen could not resolve the situation against more than 10 battle corpses, they could still defend and retreat as they fought. Roar! Right then, another battle corpse with red fur joined the battlefield and roared towards Kitsune and Mulyen. Its bulging green eyes were ghastly green and its bloody mouth was filled with sharp fangs that were stained with blood. The aura released by this battle corpse was clearly more berserk than the other battle corpses around it. Not good, Mulyen exclaimed. A half-step king of the Tomb Realm has attacked. The two of them were exhausted from the consecutive battles and were injured by now. There was no way they could defend against a battle corpse refined by a half-step king. The red-furred battle corpse roared and joined the battle, lunging towards Kitsune and Mulyen. It was 1 against 2 with a torrential aura. Kitsune's sword was a pure yang spirit treasure of the 9 tribulations. However, when it landed on the red-furred battle corpse, it was blocked by the thick red fur of the battle corpse and could not hurt its flesh at all. After a series of counterattacks, sword lights flashed and Kitsune was pushed back by the red-furred battle corpse with a wound on her body. The flesh around the wound gradually changed color and emitted a rotten stench. It was clear that it contained poison. Even Kitsune's true Wudao body could not defend against it. In the darkness, an old man from the Tomb Realm was hidden with an excited expression. As the old man manipulated the red-haired battle corpse to attack Bai Mingshui and Huang Xiaolong, he grinned hideously. "You two little girls want to fight me? I'll let you have a taste of my treasure's power." A figure gradually appeared in the darkness behind the old man. Chapter 2963. The battle corpses controlled by half-step kings were too damaging to Bai Mingshui and Mulyen. It was already beyond their limits. Su Zimo silently arrived behind the Tomb Realm Elder. He had become one with the darkness around him. As long as the darkness didn't dissipate, no one would be able to detect his presence. Su Zimo didn't say anything to the Tomb Realm Elder. He directly attacked and pierced the Elder's head with a finger, piercing his sea of consciousness and destroying his Yuan spirit. The Tomb Realm Elder died, and the red-haired battle corpse he refined was also heavily injured. Its originally indestructible body rapidly festered, its flesh peeling off and its bones falling apart. Without the threat of the red-haired battle corpse, Kitsune and Mulyen had a chance to catch their breath. They worked together to break through the blockade of a dozen battle corpses and continued to flee. More and more true spirits began to gather around them, forming an encirclement. With the help of the battle corpses, the Tomb Realm cultivators could expand their perception and vision by several times. They could keep a close eye on Kitsune and Mulyen. The two charged left and right, but they still couldn't break out of the encirclement. During this period of time, some half-step kings from the Blood World, Poison World, and Tomb World had died not long after they had appeared. Before long, the number of half-step kings who died at Su Zimo's hands had reached 20. He had tried to use soul-searching on a few half-step kings to find out some secrets, but they all failed. The memories of these half-step kings seemed to be sealed by some kind of familiar power. Once an external force probed, the seal would be triggered and the Yuan spirit would be destroyed. Witchcraft. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Under the constant attacks of the true spirits from the Blood, Poison, and Tomb realms, the space around Kitsune and Mulyen was constantly compressed and gradually trapped. More and more true spirits gathered. Su Zimo caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd of true spirits. It was Xuewen from the Blood Realm. "Beauty Mulyen, how have you been?" Xuewen came to a spot about 30 meters away from Kitsune and Mulyen and entered their line of sight. He smiled. "Shameless." Mulyen cursed. "Oh." Xuewen wasn't annoyed. He observed Mulyen and was a little surprised. "Your wounds are healed? Interesting." Of course, what surprised me even more was that you actually dared to come to the day-night domain. Could it be that you missed me and took the initiative to throw yourself into my arms? Ha. Without waiting for Mulyen to speak, Xuewen couldn't help but laugh. He couldn't hide the excitement and pride on his face. Many of the surrounding Bloodvine race also roared with laughter. The Bloodvine race was extremely bloodthirsty. They viewed other plants as their food and crazily plundered them. The original Qinglian realm was destroyed by the Bloodvine race. "I heard that you can shoot out sword energy from your mouth. Now that I see it, your mouth is truly despicable, Kitsune, who was standing beside him, said coldly. You are. Shuewen glanced at Kitsune and frowned. This person looked a little familiar, but he couldn't remember who he was. That day in the fiendish demon battlefield, Kitsune had been at the Sky Tribute Square and didn't accompany Su Zimo into the fiendish demon battlefield. Although Shuewen had seen Kitsune in the crowd of Sword World, he didn't have a deep impression of her. Senior brother. A pale-faced true spirit of Blood Realm clutched his injured chest and glared at Baiming Shui. This woman is from Sword Realm. Sword World? Shuewen was shocked. How did Sword World get involved? Shuewen seemed to have thought of something. His expression changed slightly and he quickly asked, how many people from Sword World came? I'm not sure. The Blood World true spirit shook his head and muttered, I don't think I saw anyone other than this woman. Only one person from Sword World came? Shuewen frowned. At this moment, Kitsune suddenly said, don't be afraid. Only Master and I came from Sword World this time. Who saw her master? I didn't notice. He's probably dead. Or maybe he saw that the situation was bad and ran away. The surrounding true spirits discussed among themselves for a while before they curled their lips in disdain. Who is your master? Someone asked casually. Kitsune said, Su Zhu. The surroundings instantly became so silent that one could hear a pin drop. At this moment, it was as if all the true spirits present were intimidated by this name and kept quiet out of fear. In recent years, this name was enough to make any true spirit in the 3,000 worlds feel their scalp tingle. The peak master of Sword World's 9th sword peak, Su Zhu. At the Kongming stage, he comprehended the 6 paths of reincarnation and 7 other supreme divine powers. With his own strength, he killed Xia Yin and more than 20 other supreme true spirits. He was known as the strongest true spirit in history. When Shuewen heard this name, he was so frightened that his entire body trembled. More than 800 years ago, in the evil demon battlefield, he was the only one who survived the siege of Su Zhu's supreme true spirits. Just based on this, in recent years, his fame and reputation had been increasing day by day. He was the only supreme true spirit that escaped from Su Zhu's sword. How great of an honor was this? How great of an ability was this? This was enough for Shuewen to brag about for the rest of his life. Originally, the thousands of true spirit realm experts around were still relaxed and chatting casually. But after the name Su Zhu was mentioned, the entire place went silent. Even the sound of breathing in the crowd became weak. Mu Lian felt the change in the atmosphere and was both happy and worried. She was happy because Peak Master Su Zhu's name alone was enough to intimidate thousands of true spirit realm experts. In the 3,000 worlds, Su Zhu was probably the only one who could do this. She was worried because there were many peak true spirit realm experts present. With just the name Su Zhu, she wouldn't be able to suppress them for long. Shuewen's expression was uncertain. He stared at Kitsune for a while before narrowing his eyes and asking, You're Su Zhu's disciple? Is your master really here? Kitsune didn't answer and only smiled faintly. The calmer Kitsune was, the more worried the surrounding cultivators were. Shuewen was a supreme true spirit after all. After thinking for a while, he calmed down and sneered, Everyone, don't worry. It's good that Su Zhu is here. We have more than 30 half-step kings. Once we release the heavenly abode phantoms, even Su Zhu will have to bow down. That's right. In the crowd, a true spirit realm expert nodded and said, Half-step kings have already come into contact with the power of heavenly abode realm. No matter how strong a supreme true spirit is, it hasn't reached the threshold of heavenly abode realm. If Su Zhu shows up, we can use the environment of day and night to kill her here and avenge our clansmen. In the fiend battlefield, the supreme true spirits of the witch realm, poison realm, and tomb realm had all died at the hands of Su Zimo. Where's senior martial brother Lu? Elder Hong? Martial Aunt Shuang? Where are you? At this moment, everyone found that the half-step kings of their respective realms weren't in the crowd. They called out a few times, but there was no response. At this moment, the surrounding night gradually faded away. The day and night realm changed again. Day arrived, Everyone regained their vision, consciousness, and perception of their surroundings. At the same time, they found that there was an extra person beside Kitsune and Mulyan. End of chapter. Chapter 2964. This person wore a green robe and had black hair. He stood with his hands behind his back and his left eye was as black as ink, like a bottomless black hole. He coldly stared at the surrounding cultivators. When Xuewen saw this person, his expression changed greatly. Su Zhu. He blurted out these two words. As soon as he finished speaking, the surroundings were in an uproar. The group of true spirit realm experts who wanted to step forward subconsciously took a few steps back. They were in a mess and looked at the green-robed cultivator not far away with fear. Just now, they had only heard two names, but now, they saw a living person in front of them. You wanted to kill me just now? Su Zimo's eyes were like lightning as he looked around. Many true spirit realm experts were intimidated by his aura, and no one dared to look at him directly. Their courage was weak, and they all looked away. When Kitsune and Mulyan saw Su Zimo appear, they finally heaved a sigh of relief. Su Zimo's eyes turned and landed on Xuewen. In an instant, Xuewen felt his hair stand on end and his scalp tingle. His blood and qi circulation slowed down, and a sense of extreme danger rose in his heart. This was not the fiend battlefield. In the fiend battlefield, he could escape with the help of the heaven token if the situation was bad. However, this was the land of day and night. It would take some effort to escape from the #1 true spirit realm expert in history. Of course, they had more than 30 half-step kings and thousands of peak true spirit realm experts today. They might be able to fight this Su Zhu. However, why did these half-step kings suddenly disappear? Logically speaking, they should be nearby. Looking for those half-step kings? Su Zimo said indifferently, I killed all of them on the way here. The true spirit realm experts were shocked. Su Zimo said it casually, but those were more than 30 half-step kings, and they were their biggest reliance on this trip. Impossible! Xuewen's eyes flickered, and he said in a low voice, Everyone, don't listen to his nonsense. He's only at the Kongming. Xuewen was about to say that Su Zimo was only at the Kongming stage when he suddenly realized that Su Zimo's cultivation had already reached the Dongshu stage. It was only 800 years, and there was another breakthrough? Cultivating to the true self realm, even for a cultivator with exceptional talent, would require a long period of accumulation and many opportunities to advance to the next realm. For a true spirit with a lifespan of 500,000 years, a few hundred years, or even a few thousand years, would pass by in the blink of an eye. How could someone break through from the Kongming stage to the Dongshu stage in just a few hundred years? Xuewen swallowed his saliva, paused for a moment, and then continued. He is only at the Dongshu realm, but it is impossible for him to kill more than 30 half-step kings silently. Normally speaking, if Su Zimo wanted to deal with a half-step king, he would inevitably have to fight, which would indeed cause quite a commotion. However, due to the uniqueness of the day and night land, when night fell, Su Zimo blended into the darkness. Those half-step kings didn't even notice him before being killed by him. Even after they died, their eyes were wide open and their faces were full of bewilderment. Hearing Xuewen's words, many of the true spirit realm experts who had originally wanted to retreat wavered. Everyone, listen to my command. Xuewen took a deep breath, raised his arm and shouted, pointing at Su Zimo from afar, kill him. Everyone, today is the day you become famous. After all, Xuewen was a supreme true spirit. Many of the true spirit realm experts in the blood world obeyed his orders. Hearing Xuewen's command, the true spirits of the blood world didn't doubt him. Bloodmark, who was fleeing, turned back and saw this scene. He was scared out of his wits. Back then, in the evil demon battlefield, Sky Eye Race's Xia Yin had died in Su Zimo's 6 paths of reincarnation. Although this supreme ability's power was terrifying, it was only used on Xia Yin alone, so Bloodmark didn't feel it strongly enough. But now, the 6 paths of reincarnation had descended, and the attacks of thousands of true spirit realm experts were instantly disintegrated. Bloodmark felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, He was smart enough to choose to run away at the first moment and didn't get entangled. Right at this moment, Xuewen felt as if he'd been targeted by someone, and it was like there was a thorn in his back that caused him to feel extremely uncomfortable. "Who can catch up to me?" Bloodmark frowned. He released the blood escape art and his speed increased sharply. Even a half-step king wouldn't be able to catch up to him. As long as he escaped from the world of day and night, he would be able to escape in the vast starry sky. Chapter 2965. Xuewen glanced back and saw a golden light rushing in his direction at an astonishing speed. The distance between the two of them was rapidly closing. Xuewen's pupils constricted and his expression changed. It was too fast. It was so fast that he could not identify the person's appearance with his gaze. Perhaps he did not even need to identify it. In the day and night ground, there was only one person who could unleash such speed. Su Zhu. While the blood escape grand art was powerful, Su Zimo had too many secret techniques in terms of speed. Heaven's feet, earth traversing golden light, ethereal wings, wind and thunder wings, and rock wings. When all of those secret skills were released and stacked together, even ordinary kings would not be able to match his speed, let alone Xuewen's blood escape. On the battlefield behind him, a single 6 paths of reincarnation was enough to sweep through everything. The cultivators of the blood, tomb, and poison worlds who were lucky enough to survive did not dare to linger and fled in all directions, unable to pose any threat to Kitsune and Mulyan. That was the reason why Su Zimo could chase after Xuewen without any reservations. Xuewen was panicking. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before Su Zhu caught up to him. Furthermore, his blood escape consumed his own essence blood. The longer he used it, the more his essence blood would be consumed. There were only 2 paths left in front of him. He could either stop now and fight Su Zhu to the death while he still had some essence blood left in his body. That way, he might be able to fight for a chance at survival. Or, he could wait until he used up most of his essence blood and his combat strength decreased before Su Zhu caught up. At that time, he might not even have the strength to release his supreme skills and might not even be able to defend against a single move from Su Zhu. At that thought, Xuewen suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned around. Looking at the golden light that was tearing through the air, he grit his teeth and asked, "Su Zhu, I admit defeat today. Can you let me live?" When the golden light arrived before Xuewen, it gradually dissipated and Su Zimo appeared. Faced with Xuewen's naive question, Su Zimo merely smiled coldly. Be it in the evil demon battlefield or the day and night ground, Xuewen's initial thought was to kill Su Zimo. However, when he realized that the situation was not right, he changed his mind. Back in the evil demon battlefield, Xuewen should have died. Su Zhu. Since he had consumed a lot of blood essence, Xuewen's face was pale. His eyes were dark and gloomy as he said with hatred, "Anyway, I'm the true spirit of the blood world. After you kill me, you have to bear the anger of the blood world. I've already killed the kings of your blood world. Why would I care about a supreme true spirit like you?" In the face of Xuewen's threat, Su Zimo remained unmoved. He directly charged toward Xuewen. Xuewen was taken aback. He didn't understand what Su Zimo meant by just now. Su Zhu had indeed killed many true spirits in the fiend battlefield, but when had she ever killed a king of the blood world? After the celestial tribute world was closed, the blood world, Heaven's Eye world, and other worlds sent out dozens of kings to hunt down Su Zimo, but they were all killed by Wu Dao's true body. Later on, the experts of the various worlds speculated that it was very likely that an imperial emperor expert from the sword world had made a move. Xuewen would never have thought that it was Su Zimo's doing. Seeing Su Zimo charge over, Xuewen had no time to think. He frantically activated his essence spirit and formed hand seals with both hands, releasing a supreme divine ability, space-time imprisonment. Against Su Zimo's attack, only a supreme divine ability could affect it. An invisible force descended, imprisoning the space-time around Su Zimo. Time freeze, space lock. Back in the fiend battlefield, Su Zimo had used his eye technique to condense a supreme divine ability. A single yin-yang limitless had severely injured Xuewen and almost killed him. However, This time, Su Zimo didn't release any means. He seemed to have reacted a little slower and allowed the space-time imprisonment to descend on him. A chance. Shui Wen's eyes lit up. After all, he was also a supreme true spirit. His combat strength wasn't weak and his combat talent was outstanding. As long as the space-time imprisonment could restrict Su Zhu, even if it was only for a breath's time, he could take advantage of the opportunity and severely injure her. The space-time imprisonment itself did not have much lethality. Its main purpose was to restrict a cultivator's body. Not only did it restrict space-time, it also restricted a cultivator's bloodline and essence spirit. It was equivalent to sealing all methods of the other party. In other words, the other party was at their weakest in this state. Shui Wen summoned a blood-colored saber and charged forward, prepared to slash Su Zimo's head. However, right then he caught sight of a mocking look in Su Zimo's eyes. Shui Wen was shocked. Under normal circumstances, such emotions could not be revealed under the space-time imprisonment. Not good. Just as Shui Wen arrived before Su Zimo, he suddenly thought of a terrifying guess. Su Zhu was not affected by the space-time imprisonment at all. The moment that thought crossed his mind, Su Zimo suddenly reached out and gripped Shui Wen's throat in a flash, shuddering slightly. Shui Wen's blood qi dissipated instantly and his body went limp as his saber flew out of his hands. How was that possible? Shui Wen's eyes widened in disbelief. 800 years ago, in the fiendish demon battlefield, Su Zhu had to release a supreme divine ability to deal with his space-time imprisonment. But now, his space-time imprisonment could not affect Su Zimo at all. After entering the Paradise Void Realm, Su Zimo had the grade 12 creation Qinglian as his foundation and 9 supreme divine powers to temper his bloodline. His physique was already at the Grotto Heaven realm. Although the space-time imprisonment was a supreme divine power, it could not affect the physique and bloodline of a Grotto Heaven realm cultivator. It was no exaggeration to say that the current Su Zimo could take on the supreme divine powers of a true spirit with just his physique and bloodline alone. Su Zimo did not waste any time with Shui Wen. Sword qi burst forth from his palm and tore through Shui Wen's consciousness, shredding the latter's essence spirit. He retrieved the complete Dao fruit and kept it in his pouch before turning to leave. By the time they retraced their steps, there was no one around. The surviving true spirits of the blood, poison and tomb realms had long escaped. The three of them cleaned up the battlefield and continued on their way. Since it was daytime, the three of them sped up and arrived at their destination before long. Kitsune and Muyen were searching for the hell spring nearby while Su Zimo sat cross-legged. His right eye was white as jade and emitted a blazing glow. When night fell, the nether fluorescent stone in his left eye absorbed the surrounding power of darkness. When the day came, the glow disappeared, and the illumination stone in his right eye appeared, absorbing the power of light around him. Given Su Zimo's current cultivation realm, he could not fully utilize the power of the two divine stones. However, he could make use of this process to sense the two powers of darkness and light. The land of day and night was way too special. For others, this was an ancient battlefield and a ruin of a secret realm. However, for Su Zimo, this was perhaps the best place for him to cultivate and comprehend yin and yang. Darkness and light. Yin and yang. Nether fluorescent stone and illumination stone. Limitless yin and yang. Su Zimo sensed the changes of day and night in this place and compared it to the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra, comprehending it gradually. End of chapter. Chapter 2966. Kitsune and Mu Lien dispersed and searched for traces of the hell spring water nearby. Before long, the day and night land changed once more. Night descended. Kitsune and Mu Lien frowned slightly. Under the shroud of night, their vision and spirit consciousness were obstructed, and it would be even more difficult for them to search for the hell spring water. At this moment, the night gradually receded and the day arrived. Both of them were stunned. Although there was no pattern to the alternation of day and night here, it shouldn't be this frequent. Before the two of them could react, night struck once more. Day and night alternated above the entire battlefield ruins in an unpredictable manner. As though they were stimulated, the weather changed. After an unknown period of time, the day and night land finally calmed down. The two of them did not know what happened and looked in the direction of Su Zimo instinctively. Instantly, the two of them were stunned and dumbfounded. Su Zimo sat in a lotus position with his back facing them. The left side of his body was pitch black, as though it was hidden in the darkness. However, the right side of his body shone with a blazing light. Even Su Zimo's long hair was distinct. The left side was pitch black like ink while the right side was white. It was as though he was the ruler of the day and night land. The two different and opposing powers of light and darkness were presented perfectly on his body. His left side was shrouded in night while his right side was as bright as day. With him as the boundary, the day and night land was divided into two worlds. However, the two powers of light and darkness were incompatible after all. Su Zimo's body trembled slightly, as though he was enduring immense pain. In reality, that was the case. If not for the support of the grade 12 creation Qinglian's bloodline, his body would not have been able to withstand such intense conflict. As time passed by, the conflict would intensify and become more intense. The moment it exceeded the limits of Qinglian's true body, he would explode and die. However, he did not stop cultivating and continued comprehending. If he stopped now, everything earlier would be for naught. This was the best opportunity for him to comprehend light and darkness and control yin and yang. Back when he ascended, he experienced a similar situation when the essence spirits of the Dragon Phoenix and Qinglian fused. At that time, he'd relied on the forbidden secret scripture, the Nirvana Sutra, to resolve the crisis in the end. Yet now, not only did he possess the Nirvana scripture, he even possessed the extraordinary book, the Yin-Yang Talisman scripture. Coupled with the comprehensions he'd obtained from cultivating the Yin-Yang Dao technique in these past few years, it was very likely that he would advance a step further in the Yin-Yang Dao technique. After an unknown period of time, the light and darkness powers on Su Zimo's body gradually changed. Light dimmed, and the boundary between day and night gradually blurred. The two types of energy continued to revolve and even began to merge. Under the gaze of Kitsune and Mu Lien, a shadow gradually appeared behind Su Zimo. There were two massive black and white fishes with their heads and tails connected. They were constantly spinning and chasing each other. You have me in you and I have you in me. The power Upanishads of heaven and earth were filled with endless mysteries. With the appearance of this yin-yang phantom, Su Zimo's aura also rapidly rose. Kitsune and Mu Lien felt the power emitted by the phantom and couldn't help but widen their eyes in disbelief. This is Grotto Heaven. Both of them were greatly shocked. The power emitted by this phantom had completely surpassed the true self realm. It was the power of a Grotto Heaven. Could it be? Mu Lien guessed a possibility and said with a shocked expression, could it be that Peak Master Su is going to condense a Grotto Heaven here and become a king? This was too terrifying. 800 years ago, Su Zhu was only at the Kongming stage. Now, he was going to step into a Grotto Heaven. Kitsune frowned slightly and said, that's not right. Master has just stepped into the Dongshu stage and hasn't cultivated to the peak of the Dongshu stage. How can he directly step into a Grotto Heaven? This was equivalent to trying to break through to the next stage. Since ancient times, such a situation had never happened before. In fact, a true spirit realm expert didn't have to cultivate to the peak of the Dongshu stage to try to break through and step into a Grotto Heaven. However, to condense a Grotto Heaven, one needed to shatter a Dao fruit. With the help of the explosion of power at the moment of the Tao fruit's shattering, one could shatter the void and condense a grotto heaven to reach the next stage. This process was very dangerous, and there was even a high probability of failure. If one hadn't cultivated to the peak of the Dongshu stage, the power released from the shattering of the Tao fruit might not reach the level of shattering the void and condensing a grotto heaven. Therefore, all true spirit realm experts would cultivate to the peak of the Dongshu stage and continue to accumulate power before attempting to break through. Moreover, the more power they accumulated during this process, the higher the chance of success. Now, although Su Zimo had just stepped into the Dongshu stage, his Tao fruit contained the profound meaning of many forbidden secret manuals and 9 supreme superpowers. The accumulation of such a huge and terrifying power could be said to be unprecedented and unprecedented. Even if the Tao fruit that had just stepped into the Dongshu stage was shattered, it was enough to break through the void and support a grotto heaven. In other words, as long as Su Zimo wanted to, he could use this opportunity to directly step into the grotto heaven stage and become a king. At this moment, Mulyan seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, "This is the land of day and night. If Peak Master Su steps into the grotto heaven, he will definitely be suppressed by the power of the land of day and night." Perhaps hearing Mulyan's reminder, the grotto heaven shadow behind Su Zimo did not further transform and its aura gradually stabilized. At the last moment, Su Zimo did not choose to break through and step into the grotto heaven. Of course, it was not because of the reason that Mulyan mentioned. He had the 2 god stones, Zhu Zhao and Yu. Even if he stepped into the grotto heaven stage, the power of light and darkness here would not hurt him. There was only one reason why he did not choose to step into the grotto heaven. The time was not ripe. Now, he could step into the grotto heaven and become a king, but in terms of combat strength, it was far from his expectations. His Tao fruit had not been cultivated to the peak state. If he broke through now, all the Tao skills and profound meanings he cultivated would be swallowed by the yin-yang grotto heaven. Cultivating the Tao fruit was like building a foundation. The more complete and flawless the Tao fruit was, the more Tao skills it contained, the deeper the comprehension, and the stronger the grotto heaven formed in the future. Su Zimo had another idea. This idea was too bold and could even be said to be shocking. However, he wanted to give it a try. Only by cultivating his Tao fruit to the peak state and being flawless would he have a chance to realize it. Once he succeeded, he would be reborn once more and complete his transformation. Of course, although he did not step into the grotto heaven this time, Su Zimo did not gain nothing. With the help of the land of day and night, he comprehended a grotto heaven shadow ahead of time. This grotto heaven shadow was fused with the power of light and darkness of the land of day and night, the power of yin and yang of Zhu Zhao and Yuying, as well as the yin-yang talisman sutra. Its power could even fight against a small grotto heaven. Chapter 2967. The grotto heaven phantom behind him gradually dissipated. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and opened his eyes. Although he was still at the Dongshu realm, he had already comprehended the power of the grotto heaven. Back when Wu Dao's original body was at the true martial realm, he had also comprehended a similar method, which was the Avicii Gate later on. "Peak Master Su?" Mulyan was a little worried and called out tentatively. Su Zimo stood up, turned to look at the two of them, and nodded slightly. Seeing that Su Zimo's expression was normal, Mulyan was relieved and said, "That was close. Peak Master Su, if you broke through to the grotto heaven realm, you might cause trouble." Su Zimo smiled and did not explain. He had the illumination and nether glow divine stones. Even if he really stepped into the grotto heaven realm, he would not cause too much of a reaction from the day-night land. The light and darkness powers of the day-night land were not harmful to him at all. With Su Zimo's help, the 3 of them found some hell spring water nearby in just a day. However, it was relatively rare and could not even fit an immortal pill bottle. Mulyan was rather happy and satisfied. In her opinion, it was already extremely lucky to be able to find such an ancient spring water after so many epochs. Because of Su Zimo's escort, they entered the day-night land this time. Although there were some hiccups, it was already very smooth. After obtaining the hell spring water, the three of them did not stay in the day-night land. Many people of the flower realm were infected with the nether calamity poison. The earlier they obtained the hell spring water, the earlier they could escape the danger. Moreover, many cultivators of the blood realm, poison realm, and tomb realm had escaped. If they waited for them to return to their respective realms, they might make a comeback and alarm the Grotto Heaven realm kings, creating many variables. The three of them left the day-night land and saw immortal King Yulan waiting outside. Immortal King Yulan was overjoyed when he learned that the three of them had obtained the ancient spring water. Fellow Taoist Su, thank you so much this time. Immortal King Yulan said, if you have nothing to do, why don't you come with us to the flower realm? I'll be a good host and the flower realm will definitely reward you. It's nothing. It's nothing. Su Zimo smiled. At this moment, Su Zimo seemed to have sensed something. He turned his head slightly and looked in another direction, frowning slightly. An obscure energy fluctuation came from the other side of the starry sky, faintly affecting the entire land of day and night. It seemed like someone was using the power of light and darkness to cultivate. Su Zimo didn't think too much about it, nor did he intend to complicate matters. He turned around and was about to reply to immortal King Yulan when Kitsune suddenly said, Master, over there. Kitsune pointed at the starry sky on the other side, which was the direction where Su Zimo had just sensed something. She frowned, wanting to say something, but hesitated. What happened? Su Zimo asked. Kitsune sensed it again and said hesitantly, I feel that the bloodline aura coming from there is somewhat familiar. It should be. After pausing for a moment, Kitsune said slowly, Kuan Peng bloodline. Su Zimo's expression changed slightly. Although immortal King Yulan and Mu Lian were surprised when they heard about the Kuan Peng bloodline, they did not think much of it. The Kuan Peng was a forbidden bloodline and was extremely rare. However, in this generation, there was a high chance that the Kuan Peng bloodline could be nurtured in the Kuan Peng world or the Peng world. The two of them could not understand why Su Zimo and Kitsune would reveal such expressions. Su Zimo asked, Carefree? He had two disciples in Tianhuang mainland. His eldest disciple was Kitsune. His second disciple possessed a forbidden Kuan Peng and was named Carefree. Kitsune hesitated for a moment before nodding. My lineage has been guarding that Kuan Peng egg for generations. Therefore, there's a faint connection between my bloodline and junior brother. As long as we're not too far away, I'll be able to sense it. Kitsune's bloodline phenomenon was a gigantic Kuan. Carefree was born in the divine spring beneath the Baiming family back then and was naturally inextricably linked to the bloodline of the Baiming family. After ascending, Su Zimo did not receive any news about Carefree. He guessed that Carefree should be in the Kuan Peng world or the Peng world. However, he did not have the chance to head to those two super worlds to find out more information. Now that he received news about Carefree, it should have been a good thing. However, Su Zimo noticed that Kitsune did not look too good. Did something happen to Carefree? Su Zimo's expression darkened. Kitsune shook her head slightly. I'm not sure. However, I can sense that he doesn't seem to be in a good condition. Let's go take a look. Su Zimo turned and headed towards the starry sky without hesitation. Immortal King Yulan and Mulian followed closely behind. Kitsune explained briefly to Immortal King Yulan and Mulian Yulan. The two of them were enlightened and understood why Su Zimo was so nervous. Su Zimo and the other three advanced in the direction of the energy fluctuation. Not long after, they gradually approached their destination. Su Zimo seemed to have thought of something and did not rush forward rashly. Instead, he released a few dermic arts from the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra to conceal the auras of the four of them. Su Zimo had no choice but to be careful when he sensed the aura of a Grotto Heaven expert ahead. The four of them gradually disappeared into the void as they slowly approached the area in front of them. Not far away from the day and night land, there was an ancient star floating. The energy fluctuation that guided the day and night land came from this star. Su Zimo looked at Kitsune. Kitsune nodded as well, indicating that Carefree should be on this star. The four of them continued to move towards the star, getting closer and closer. Finally, the star completely entered the four people's line of sight. They could also clearly see everything that was happening on the star. two figures floated above the star. One of them was a young man with a thin body. His limbs were wrapped in chains that flickered with green runes. His shoulder blades were pierced through by two huge hooks and were dripping with blood. These chains were all submerged into the ground of the star. On the ground, formation patterns flickered continuously, revealing a black and white yin-yang diagram that was constantly chasing and biting, absorbing the power of light and darkness of the day and night land. And these powers were continuously injected into the young man's body. The young man's hair was disheveled and his face was pale. He was enduring immense pain as his body twitched continuously. That was because these powers did not stay in his body at all. Opposite this young man was a man in black armor. He had a noble air about him. His black hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were bright and spirited. At that moment, the phantom of a gigantic Kuan appeared behind the man in black armor. It covered the sky and shone with countless spots of light that formed a strange trajectory. The gigantic Kuan opened its mouth, and it was like a bottomless black hole that was madly absorbing the power of the young man opposite it. The power of the day and night land surged into the young man's body through the yin-yang formation on the star and turned into threads that were drawn out of his body. In the midst of these powers, there were even blood-colored threads. The gigantic Kuan behind the man in black armor was not only devouring the power of yin-yang in the young man's body, it was also devouring his bloodline. Chapter 2968. What a vicious method! Immortal King Yulan hid in the void and sent a voice transmission. Su Zimo's gaze was cold and he did not say anything. The young man who was chained above the formation was none other than the carefree. Immortal King Yulan said, "That black-armored man is releasing a secret skill of the Kuan race, the North Sea diagram. It possesses an extremely strong devouring power, and it's said that it can devour everything at its peak." The so-called North Sea diagram was the gigantic Kuan that appeared behind the black-armored man. Countless spots of light shone on its body and formed mysterious lines of light. That was the trajectory of the secret skill. Only those with the bloodline of the Kuan race could cultivate the North Sea diagram. The Kuan race was way too massive and could be ranked as the number one race among the 10,000 races. Only the massive bodies of the Kuan race could contain so many spots of light and form a complete diagram to release a massive devouring power. "He's devouring the carefree's Kuan Peng bloodline," Kitsune said with a cold expression and clenched her fists. "It's not just the bloodline." Su Zimo shook his head gently. If it was just to devour the carefree's bloodline, he could have done it anywhere. There was no need for him to travel so far to the vicinity of the day and night land. The formation on the ground could gather the power of light and darkness of the day and night land. The black-armored man possessed the bloodline of the Kuan race and could only control the power of the Great Yin. He could not absorb the power of light and darkness directly, nor could he balance the two powers. However, the carefree was a forbidden Kuan Peng. Not only did he control the power of the Great Yin, he also controlled the power of the Great Yang. Locking the carefree in the formation meant that the power of light and darkness gathered from the day and night land would be channeled into the carefree's body. Only the carefree's Kuan Peng bloodline could absorb such pure and massive power of light and darkness and convert it into the power of the Great Yin and Great Yang in his body. The black-armored man then made use of the secret skill of the North Sea diagram to devour the power of the Great Yin and Great Yang along with the carefree's Kuan Peng bloodline. In other words, the black-armored man was using the carefree to cultivate and even complete a blood swap transformation. At the true self realm and the Tao fruit, it was difficult for a situation such as possession to occur. The Tao fruit, body, bloodline and essence spirit had long fused into one and were inextricably linked. Even if Xiao Yao's primordial spirit was killed and the primordial spirit of the man in black armor took over Xiao Yao's sea of consciousness, it would still not be compatible with Xiao Yao's Kuan Peng bloodline. That was why the man in black armor came up with such a vicious method to let himself be reborn. His rebirth meant the fall of carefree. Moreover, this person was extremely ambitious. It was obvious that he had reached the peak of the Dongshu stage and could step into the Grotto Heaven realm at any time. Not only did he want Xiao Yao's Kuan Peng bloodline, but he also wanted to use this opportunity to break through, condense his paradise, and become a king. Kuan King? Immortal King Yulan's gaze fell on an old man not far from the black-armored man. She murmured, "He's actually still alive." This old man had white hair and looked extremely old. The old man's eyes were as deep as the sea. His hands were behind his back. He stood there without moving, but he faintly emitted a majestic and heavy pressure. "Is this person very strong?" Su Zimo asked. The four of them were hiding in the void. If he rashly released his divine sense to probe their cultivation base, it was very likely that he would be exposed. This is also a Peak King. More importantly, this Moon Witch King seemed to know the Kuan King. After he appeared, the Kuan King and the others were not surprised. Instead, the two of them gathered together and chatted casually. Su Zimo seemed to have thought of something and looked at the chains wrapped around Carefree's body. These chains were engraved with green runes, which seemed to be a secret technique of the witch race. From the looks of it, these green runes were most likely the work of this Moon Witch King. 2 Peak Kings and 4 ordinary immortal kings. It was indeed a little tricky. After a moment of silence, Su Zimo suddenly asked, "Taoist Yulan, can you hold back the Kuan King and the Moon Witch King?" Immortal King Yulan was shocked and asked, "You still want to save them?" Su Zimo was silent. As Carefree's master, he couldn't watch his disciple die in front of him. Moreover, according to his deduction, if he tried his best, he might still have a chance. Immortal King Yulan sighed softly. In her opinion, Su Zimo's idea was too crazy and irrational. He was simply courting death. If the rescue failed, Su Zimo and the other two would definitely die. She might not even be able to escape the pursuit of the Kuan King and the Moon Witch King. Even if there was a 1 in 10,000 chance, if they really rescued Carefree, would this matter be over? How would the 4 of them escape? Even if they escaped, with the identity of the black-armored man, how would he give up so easily? There would definitely be endless trouble in the future. Chapter 2969. Immortal King Yulan was silent for a while before sending a voice transmission. "I might be able to hold back the Earth Rock King and Moon Witch King if I try my best, but I won't be able to hold them back for long." Saying this meant that Immortal King Yulan was ready to attack. This was not an easy decision for her. "How long can you hold them back?" Su Zimo asked again. Immortal King Yulan did not understand what Su Zimo could do with this time. Not to mention the fact that she couldn't hold them off for long. Even if she could this Peak Master Su save that young man under the noses of the 4 kings? Immortal King Yulan did not ask and only shook her head. Maybe a few dozen breaths, maybe even less. If Su Zimo wanted to save the youth, he would definitely affect the black-armored man. The Earth Rock King would definitely go all out when he saw that person in danger. Therefore, she might not be able to hold on for more than a few dozen breaths. "That's enough." Su Zimo murmured. "What?" Immortal King Yulan felt like she was hallucinating and was not sure. She turned to look at Su Zimo and asked again. Su Zimo did not explain and only observed the situation on the star. Even though he had decided to attack, he did not act rashly. This attack was of great importance. The slightest mistake could lead to eternal damnation. Su Zimo had to be sure that there was no one around the star and no other variables. He had to deduce every detail carefully before he attacked. On an ancient star near the land of day and night, the black-armored man was still using Carefree to cultivate, devouring the power of yin and yang and plundering the Earth Rock bloodline. His aura was slowly rising. This Earth Rock's bloodline is a little special. Moon Witch King stared at the blood-colored threads flowing out of Carefree's body. His green eyes flickered as he said softly, "Brother Moon Witch King has good eyes." The Earth Rock King nodded slightly and said, "This Earth Rock's bloodline is showing signs of atavism." Moon Witch King's eyes lit up. He then took a deep look at Carefree and pursed his lips. "What a pity." "It's nothing," the Kuan King said casually. "As long as the Emperor succeeds this time and inherits his Kuan Peng bloodline, it's not a pity." The Moon Mage King said, "Even if he can inherit the Kuan Peng bloodline, there's probably no possibility of atavism." Earth Kuan King nodded and said, "This Kuan Peng came from the lower realm. I don't know what kind of fortuitous encounter he obtained to transform into the Kuan Peng bloodline. Without anyone to protect him, he won't be able to protect his bloodline. This Kuan-Peng is smart. After it ascended, it never showed the characteristics of the Kuan-Peng bloodline. It only showed the aura of the Kuan race's bloodline. The Earth Rock King chuckled and said, unfortunately, he can't hide from the perception of an Imperial Emperor expert. At this moment, the Moon Witch King seemed to have sensed something. His gaze shifted and he said in a low voice, "Someone's here." In the next moment, 4 figures tore through the void and descended on the ancient planet. One of them was Immortal King Yulan. After appearing, Immortal King Yulan did not hesitate. She propped up her great perfection paradise and enveloped the Earth Rock King and Moon Witch King. After the 4 of them arrived, they split into 2 groups. Immortal King Yulan charged toward the Earth Rock King and Moon Witch King, while the other 3 charged toward the black-armored man in midair. The Earth Rock King frowned. Among the 4 figures, only Immortal King Yulan was at the Great Perfection Paradise realm. The other 3 were only at the True Self realm and could not threaten the black-armored man at all. The black-armored man was guarded by 4 Kuan race kings. The 3 true spirits could not get close to the black-armored man at all. As for the peak stage Immortal King in front of him, the Earth Rock King curled his lips and revealed a cold smile. Not to mention the peak stage Immortal King of the Witch race beside him, even he himself was enough to suppress Immortal King Yulan. "You are courting death." The Earth Rock King did not hesitate. The void behind him collapsed, and a huge grotto heaven appeared. A dark and deep ocean surged inside, emitting a cold and sinister aura. Flower Realm, Immortal King Yulan? The Moon Witch King recognized Immortal King Yulan and raised his eyebrows. He also propped up a grotto heaven and faced her. Boom, boom. The 3 great perfection grotto heavens collided directly, erupting with a deafening explosion that shook the starry sky and the earth. On the other side, 3 figures pounced toward the black-armored man in midair. The 4 Kuan race kings hiding in the dark immediately appeared. One of them stood in front of the 3 with a disdainful expression. He suddenly spoke and unleashed a sound domain secret technique in the direction of the 3. He alone was enough to deal with 3 true spirits. He did not even need to use his grotto heaven. The other 3 kings of the Kuan race watched this scene calmly. Due to the Kuan race's huge bodies and majestic chi and blood, the sound domain secret technique would erupt with extremely terrifying destructive power. Even kings of the same level from other races might not be able to escape unscathed. If they were facing true spirits, the sound domain secret technique of the Kuan race was enough to shatter their bodies and primordial spirits into a bloody mist and kill them instantly. As expected, after the sound domain secret technique was unleashed, the 3 figures could not withstand the impact and their bodies instantly exploded. However, after the 3 figures' bodies exploded, no blood flowed out. Only 3 jade slips were left floating in the air, emitting purple, red, and green rays of light. Oh! The Kuan race king was stunned. This is the 3 pure jade booklet? The other 3 Kuan race kings exclaimed in disbelief when they saw the 3 jade slips. The Kuan race king who had just attacked seemed to sense that something was wrong. However, he could not figure it out. At that moment, a figure rushed out of the void that Immortal King Yulan and the others had just walked out of. It was too fast. Almost the instant after the Kuan race king released the sound domain secret technique, this figure rushed out. When the Kuan race king saw the 3 pure jade booklet and was slightly dazed, this figure arrived in front of him and slashed forward with an emerald sword in hand. The sword flashed and sank into the Kuan race king's glabella. This sword completely ended this person's life. No matter how strong a king's primordial spirit was, it could not block the Qingping sword's sharpness. The Kuan race king's eyes widened in disbelief even at the moment of his death. Just as the sword light flashed, he finally understood one thing. If the 3 pure jade booklet belonged to Immortal King Yulan, it should be a clone of a king, not a true self. In other words, the owner of the 3 pure jade booklet was someone else. Apart from the 3 pure jade clone, there should be another true body. However, even if he understood this, the Kuan race king would never have imagined that a true spirit could kill him instantly. This was a perfect assassination. Su Zimo's timing was the moment the Kuan race king was dazed when he saw the 3 pure jade booklet after releasing the sound domain's secret technique. Whether it was a moment faster or a moment slower, it would not have achieved this effect. Chapter 2970. A Kuan king was killed in an instant. Immortal King Yulan couldn't help but exclaim when she saw this. A Dongshu realm true spirit was able to kill a Grotto Heaven realm king. Even the most outstanding geniuses in history might not be able to do so. This assassination could be said to be breathtaking. Be it the timing, the release of the secret technique, or the opponent's mentality, they were all perfectly used by him. In order to succeed in the assassination, Su Zhu didn't hesitate to reveal the 3 pure jade book. But at the same time, Immortal King Yulan also knew that killing a Kuan king didn't mean that Su Zhu could fight against a Kuan king. This kind of assassination could only be attempted once, and could only succeed once. There were still 3 Kuan kings on the other side. They reacted and attacked with all their might. Su Zhu had no chance. Immortal King Yulan tried her best to stall the Kuan king and Moon Witch king, but she sighed in her heart. In her opinion, Su Zimo was risking it all by exposing a secret utmost treasure like the 3 pure jade manual in order to assassinate a king of the Kuan race. Although he succeeded, the appearance of the 3 purity jade book would definitely attract the attention of others. When the Kuan king and the Moon Witch king saw the 3 clarities jade booklet, their eyes shone brightly, and a hint of excitement flashed past them. Seeing a Kuan king die, the Kuan king and Moon Witch king were slightly surprised, but they didn't take it to heart. It was just a true spirit. Even if he succeeded in killing a Kuan king, it wouldn't cause much trouble. They were already secretly planning how to snatch the 3 purity jade book. On the other side of the battlefield, with the death of a Kuan king, Su Zimo's true body was completely exposed. The armor-clad man was originally cultivating, but when he saw this, he couldn't help but frown. But he looked calm and wasn't worried at all. The remaining 3 Kuan kings had already gone up to meet him. Mas Carefree opened his eyes with great difficulty. When he saw the figure below him, he found it hard to believe. He murmured softly, and his eyes gradually turned red. The armor-clad man had stolen his bloodline, and he had been resisting and persevering. He didn't want to give in just like that. However, his body was bound by chains covered in sorcerer tribe runes. His shoulder blades were pierced through, and he could not even transform into his true form. He could not resist at all. Carefree could clearly feel that his bloodline was being devoured bit by the black-armored man. Pain and despair. Carefree's heart was filled with helplessness. His consciousness gradually became blurry. Just as he was about to lower his head and give up, there was a sudden change below. He subconsciously looked up and saw a familiar figure with black hair and green robes. Master? Was this for real? Master has come to save me. At that moment, the 3 Kuan kings did not hold back at all. They raised their respective grotto heavens and surrounded their master. Carefree widened his eyes and subconsciously clenched his fists. He could tell that his master's cultivation had yet to reach the grotto heaven realm. His master was only a true spirit realm cultivator. How was he supposed to defend himself against 3 Kuan kings? A mere immortal spirit dares to meddle in the affairs of the Kuan race? You are truly courting death. A Kuan race king released a light shout, his eyes cold. He propped up his heavenly passage, suppressing downwards. On the battlefield, Su Zimo did not retreat against the encirclement of the 3 Kuan kings. He had no space to dodge. The 3 Kuan kings' grotto heavens had already sealed all the space around him. Su Zimo took a deep breath. His eyes shone brightly as he conjured hand seals with both hands. He frantically activated his essence spirit and released his innate ability, 8 Fangs Divine Power. Swoosh! Su Zimo's aura instantly rose to another level. After releasing this innate ability, Su Zimo's physical body, bloodline, and essence spirit were all at their peak. Boom! A loud explosion sounded from Su Zimo's body. In the blink of an eye, 3 heads grew from his shoulders, and 6 arms grew from his sides. Supreme ability, 4 heads, 8 arms. Both of his palms unleashed a supreme divine ability each. In the state of 4 heads, 8 arms, Su Zimo's black hair billowed and his aura surged. He was like a Shura that had descended. His gaze was like lightning as he stared at the 3 Kuan kings around him. The 3 kings of the Kuan race gasped. 4 heads, 8 arms. Originally, the 3 of them had surrounded Su Zimo. However, at this moment, the 3 Kuan kings felt as if they were being attacked by Su Zimo. Su Zimo's newly grown 6 arms were not idle either. His palms moved at the same time as he conjured different hand seals. A blood-red longsword that contained boundless killing intent caused the stars in the heavens and earth to tremble. Dragons and snakes danced in the air as the heavens and earth were overturned. Immortal slaying sword. Wangmani Pami hum. Suddenly, a series of Sanskrit chants sounded in midair, accompanied by the roars of dragons and elephants. Around Su Zimo, Buddhas, dragons, and elephants appeared. Buddhist light illuminated the entire world. Buddhas, dragons, and elephants. A huge abyss vortex descended from the sky. 6 strange runes flashed on it as it spun continuously. It was as if it wanted to devour everything in the world and drag all life into the cycle of reincarnation. 6 paths of reincarnation. A scarlet flame burst out and condensed into a small fiery red sparrow in midair. Its body contained a terrifying power that was incomparably hot and could incinerate the world. Vermilion bird heavenly fire. Another hand seal descended. The surrounding space was locked, and time came to a standstill. Space-time imprisonment. Su Zimo's left eye was pitch black, while his right eye was pure white. 2 divine lights, one black and one white, condensed into a huge yin-yang millstone in midair. Limitless yin-yang. Including the 8 fangs divine force and 4 heads and 8 arms at the beginning, Su Zimo unleashed 8 supreme divine powers at the same time. In an instant, the earth and mountains shook, and the void trembled. The commotion was so great that even immortal King Yulan and the other 2 who were fighting on the other side subconsciously looked over. What they saw shocked the 3 of them. What was that? Supreme divine powers? They had seen almost all the supreme divine powers since they had started cultivating. However, they had never seen so many supreme divine powers being unleashed from the same person at the same time. The scene before them was earth-shattering with a terrifying aura. Chapter 2971. Other than using the 4 heads and 8 arms and 8 fangs to improve his condition, Su Zimo used the remaining 6 supreme mystiques on one of the Kuan kings without holding back. The 3 Kuan kings stood in 3 different positions. If the 6 supreme mystiques were spread out and used against the 3 grotto heavens, it would be equivalent to having their power dissipated. They might not be able to do anything. The safest way was to use all of them on one of the Kuan kings. The immortal vanquishing sword was extremely murderous. The Buddhas, dragons, and elephants shook the void. The 6 paths of reincarnation devoured everything. The vermilion bird heavenly fire incinerated everything. The infinite yin and yang crushed heaven and earth. Coupled with the restriction of time and space, although it only affected the Kuan king for a moment, it was more than enough. The 6 supreme mystiques covered the sky and the 6 paths of reincarnation. When combined, the power that burst out had completely transformed and reached another level. Boom! The 6 supreme mystiques collided with the grotto heavens and exploded with a loud bang. After a slight pause, the grotto heavens collapsed and turned into nothingness. The king of the Kuan immediately unleashed his blood chi and transformed into a giant Kuan. Even so, he still couldn't block the attack of the 6 supreme spells. The immortal vanquishing sword left shocking wounds on his body. They were so deep that his bones could be seen. His body was almost torn apart. Although the giant Kuan's body was huge, it still couldn't withstand the 6 paths of reincarnation. Boom! After all, he was the Kuan king. With a loud bang, the Kuan king used his powerful blood essence to break free of the 6 paths of reincarnation. However, he was already covered in injuries. Under the chants of the Buddhas and the attacks of the divine dragons and elephants, The wounds on his body deepened and blood flowed non-stop. The Kuan King's body was shattered into pieces. This kind of injury was nothing to a Kuan King. However, the supreme mystiques didn't stop attacking. The millstone formed by the infinite yin and yang descended and continuously crushed the Kuan King's shattered body, not giving him a chance to rebuild his body. Under the crushing power of yin and yang, the Kuan King's body exploded into a bloody mist. Even his primordial spirit was severely injured. Even so, the Kuan King was still alive. The Kuan race's vitality was too strong. As long as he had a chance to catch his breath, he would be able to recover. However, the vermilion bird Heavenly Flame followed closely behind, not giving him any chance. A small fiery red sparrow rushed into the blood mist and then exploded into flames that filled the sky, forming a momentum that could burn the heavens. The Kuan King's primordial spirit and flesh were quickly burned to ashes. The space around the star was burned red, as if the sky was filled with red clouds. Amidst the devastation, there was also a strange sense of beauty. When the people on the planet saw this, they were all shocked. Even the three pinnacle kings, Immortal King Yulan, Earth Rock King, and Moon Witch King, felt an unprecedented shock. How could this be? Releasing a supreme divine ability was extremely taxing on one's primordial spirit. The burden on his primordial spirit was even greater after continuously releasing supreme divine abilities. How much of a toll would it take on one's primordial spirit to release 8 supreme divine abilities in one breath? He was just a true spirit. How could he possibly withstand it? Releasing multiple supreme divine abilities at the same time was more taxing on one's primordial spirit than continuously releasing them. Back then, Su Zimo had released many supreme divine abilities consecutively in the evil spirit battlefield, which had already made the scalps of many kings go numb. In their opinion, releasing 8 supreme divine abilities at the same time was too taxing on the primordial spirit. A true spirit wouldn't be able to withstand it. Furthermore, supreme divine abilities were the strongest means of a true spirit. What else could Su Zhu have left? Facing the incoming Kuan King, Su Zimo didn't retreat at all. Instead, he charged forward. Behind him, the void collapsed, and a looming grotto heaven appeared. This is a grotto heaven? The Kuan King's face turned pale in fright. He thought that Su Zimo was hiding his cultivation level, but in fact he had already stepped into the grotto heaven realm. But soon he discovered something strange. It's not a grotto heaven, the Kuan King calmed down and suddenly laughed. So it's just a grotto heaven phantom. You want to fight my real grotto heaven with just this? Before he finished speaking, the grotto heaven phantom behind Su Zimo collided with the Kuan King's small grotto heaven. Rumble! The void shook. The scene of the Kuan race's king crushing the other party as he had imagined did not happen. On the contrary, Su Zimo's grotto heaven phantom could even fight his small grotto heaven head-on. Su Zimo's grotto heaven phantom contained the Tao of the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra, the divine power of candlelight and nether glow, and even the power of light and darkness. Even though it was just a phantom, it wasn't weaker than a real grotto heaven. Chapter 2972. Boom! Another deafening sound echoed. Su Zimo's grotto heaven phantom and the Kuan monarch's grotto heaven shattered at the same time, turning into nothingness. Su Zimo raised the Tai horsetail whisk with one hand and 3,000 silver threads tore through the air, wrapping around the Kuan monarch's body to prevent him from reverting to his true form. At the same time, he threw out the Sanyu Rui with his other hand towards the Kuan monarch's head. With his other hand, he waved the Qingping sword and stabbed towards the other party's glabella. Seeing that the situation was bad, the other Kuan monarch hurriedly supported his grotto heaven to suppress it. Su Zimo's grotto heaven phantom had already dissipated in the collision earlier on. Now that it was facing the attack of another grotto heaven, it seemed like it could not withstand the burden. Inside his body, the sound of bones cracking could be heard. His body was trembling slightly. Let's see how you're going to survive. The Kuan monarch roared and channeled his essence spirit, releasing all the power of his grotto heaven. The grotto heaven behind him emitted a dark light and surged coldly within, enveloping Su Zimo bit by bit. Su Zimo's physical body had indeed reached the level of the Grotto Heaven realm. However, it was still difficult for him to withstand the might of the Grotto Heaven. Seeing Su Zimo's figure being devoured by the Grotto Heaven bit by bit, the carefree Xiao Yao clenched his fists tightly with tears in his eyes. He struggled continuously as the chains on his body rattled. Fu. When the black-armored man saw this, he chuckled and said proudly, "Stop struggling. This is the fate of you and your disciple." Immortal King Yulan sighed inwardly when she saw this scene. The fact that Su Zimo could kill 2 Kuan monarchs and destroy the Grotto Heaven of a 3rd Kuan monarch had already far exceeded her imagination. Unfortunately, he was still a little lacking. Su Zimo was dead and there was no way she could hold on here. It was time for her to think of a way out. Right then, a sonorous voice sounded from the Kuan monarch's Grotto Heaven. "I've never believed in fate." The moment he said that, a series of terrifying cracking sounds could be heard from the Kuan monarch's Grotto Heaven. Above the small heavenly abode, spiderweb-like cracks gradually appeared and rapidly expanded, covering the entire heavenly abode. Suddenly, streaks of dazzling green light burst out of the small Grotto Heaven, illuminating the void and cleansing the universe. Rumble. Subsequently, a deafening explosion resounded from the battlefield. Even Immortal King Yulan and the other 2 who were fighting in the distance were shocked and subconsciously looked over. Then, the 3 of them saw an extremely shocking scene. A dark green Qinglian was seen bursting out of that small heavenly passage, defying the heavens as it rose up. Enormous lotus leaves grew on its body, covering the sky and covering the sun, flickering with light. At the very top of Qinglian, there was a lotus flower that emitted a green brilliance. The 12 circles of lotus leaves were constantly blooming, and the 108 lotus seeds were dancing in the air. This Qinglian exuded an incomparably terrifying aura, as if it was the god of all creatures. It took root in the stars, connected to the heavens and penetrated the earth, overlooking the 3,000 worlds. When the 3 peak-stage immortal kings saw this scene, they were all shocked. This is the 12th grade creation Qinglian. Immortal King Yulan had long guessed that Su Zimo might be related to the creation Qinglian, but she did not expect that Su Zimo had already cultivated the creation Qinglian to the 12th grade realm. Under normal circumstances, Su Zimo's physical body had already reached the level of a small heavenly abode. After releasing the 8-fang divine power, the power of this bloodline phenomenon had already surpassed that of a small heavenly abode. When the 12th grade creation Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon appeared, Su Zimo, who was under the 4-headed and 8-armed immortal king, immediately broke free and took out the Tri-Jade Rui Scepter, the Tai Horsetail Whisk, and the Qingping Sword to attack the 2 Kuan kings. The 2 Kuan kings were scared out of their wits. They had never seen a true spirit being able to erupt with such terrifying combat strength. The bloodline phenomenon of a true spirit was able to destroy a small heavenly abode. What kind of bloodline was this? Without the protection of the heavenly abode, the 2 of them could not withstand Su Zimo's attack at all. In close combat, no one could defeat the 4-headed and 8-armed Su Zimo. Not to mention the 2 Kuan kings, even 2 more would not be enough. The 2 Kuan kings also took out their bloodline phenomenons, but they still could not withstand the attack of the 12th grade creation Qinglian. The giant Kuan behind them appeared and wanted to devour the 12th grade creation Qinglian, but it was quickly shattered by the swaying Qinglian and turned into nothingness. The most terrifying thing was that the 2 Kuan kings could clearly feel that their bloodlines were being suppressed. The 12th grade creation Qinglian appeared behind them and the 4-headed, 8-armed Su Zimo held all kinds of divine weapons. His gaze was like lightning and his aura was monstrous. He was unparalleled. Ever since Su Zimo's Qinglian true body stepped into the true self stage, he was worried that his bloodline would be exposed, so he had never used his full strength. Even when facing the siege of more than 20 supreme true spirits in the evil demon battlefield, Su Zimo had still held back. It was only today that the 12th grade Qinglian true body truly erupted with its full strength. In just a few rounds, it killed the 2 Kuan kings. This was the true combat strength of Qinglian true body at its peak state. Su Zimo had not stepped into the heavenly abode, but he dared to travel with immortal King Yulan. The most important reason was that he had something to rely on. He knew that if he really faced an ordinary immortal king, he had enough means to kill them. Even if he could not defeat a peerless king or a peak king, he had the chance to escape thousands of miles away. At this point in the battle, the 4 Kun kings guarding the black-armored man had all died. Apart from the first one, who was killed by Su Zimo in a daze. The other 3 were killed by Su Zimo domineeringly in a head-on battle. Seeing this scene, the black-armored man in midair finally panicked. After killing the 4 Kun race kings, Su Zimo glared at him right away. "Earth Kun King, come and save me." The black-armored man's heart trembled as he hurriedly shouted. The Earth Kun King frowned with an ugly expression. The black-armored man had a noble status as of the Arch. He had been arranged by the Kun the Arch to protect his safety. Naturally, he could not let him suffer any harm. The Earth Kun King let out a long roar, and the power of the heavenly abode behind him skyrocketed as it pressed down on immortal King Yulan. The Moon Witch King sensed the Earth Kun King's intentions and also released secret techniques to tie down immortal King Yulan's energy. Immortal King Yulan retreated step by step. Her perfected grotto heaven was on the verge of collapse and could not hold on any longer. The Earth Kun King left his perfected grotto heaven on the battlefield and continued to pressure immortal King Yulan. At the same time, he moved and instantly appeared behind Su Zimo, smashing down with his palm. Boom! Su Zimo's bloodline phenomenon instantly collapsed. The Earth Kun King was a peak king. Even without the protection of his grotto heaven, he could easily kill Su Zimo with just his physical body and bloodline. With a perfected grotto heaven, his Dao techniques were close to perfection and he tempered his physical body and bloodline all year round. Naturally, he was far from what ordinary kings could compare to. Su Zimo was only a true spirit after all. The difference between the two was too great. The grade 12 creation Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon could not withstand it at all. Die! The Earth Kun King's gaze was cold. After shattering Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon with one palm, his palm did not stop and continued to press down on Su Zimo's head. The power of this palm was so strong that it instantly collapsed the void and sealed all the space Su Zimo could dodge. Chapter 2973. Su Zimo seemed to know that he could not avoid it and could only wave his 8 arms to meet the Earth Kun monarch's huge hand. "Huh," the Earth Kun monarch sneered. "A mantis trying to stop a chariot. That's all there is to it." Compared to his attack, Su Zimo's palm was too weak. At that moment, the Earth Kun monarch's heart palpitated for no reason. The Earth Kun monarch's heart skipped a beat as he continued attacking Su Zimo. At the same time, he was on guard and probed his surroundings. As far as he was concerned, only a peak king could threaten him. If it was not immortal King Yulan, there would be other experts spying nearby. However, he did not detect anything unusual with his divine consciousness. There were indeed 2 women in the distant void. However, they were only true spirits and were nothing to be afraid of. They seemed to be from the sword world and flower world. After dealing with immortal King Yulan and the 9th Sword Peak Master, he would kill the 2 of them. A few thoughts flashed through his mind as the Earth Kun monarch's huge hand collided with Su Zimo's 8 arms. A huge force surged over, vast and majestic. Su Zimo's body shook violently. Even his 4 heads and 8 arms could not withstand it. Su Zimo's 6 arms and 3 heads exploded instantly. The Earth Kun monarch broke his 4-headed, 8-armed state with a casual palm strike. Su Zimo's bones were broken and his organs were ruptured. He spat out blood and fell heavily to the ground, stirring up a lot of dust. A terrifying force surged into Qinglian's true body, destroying the vitality of this body. If not for Qinglian's true body having grown to the 12th stage and had a huge vitality and powerful blood qi, he would have died on the spot with just that palm strike. Su Zimo endured the pain and stared at the Earth Kun monarch. There was no fear in his eyes. Instead, he was looking forward to it. This scene was not out of the Earth Kun monarch's expectations. A true spirit was too weak in front of him. So what if it was a 12th stage creation Qinglian? So what if she had 4 heads and 8 arms? She could not withstand a single blow. The Earth Kuan monarch did not even look at Su Zimo. His huge hand did not stop and continued to press down, wanting to crush Su Zimo to death. In midair, the Earth Kuan monarch looked down from above, his white hair fluttering. With one hand, he heavily injures Su Zimo with indescribable ease. That was the battle strength of a pinnacle king. Overwhelming strength. The Earth Rock King stood proudly and said indifferently, "In front of absolute power you're—" Before he could finish his words, he stopped abruptly. It was because he heard a muffled drum sound. It was lifeless, indescribably sorrowful, devoid of life. These scenes flashed before the Earth Kuan monarch's eyes like a merry-go-round. Finally, he saw a white-haired, withered old man with a face full of wrinkles. His eyes were lifeless as he stood alone on an ancient planet. He was on the verge of death and could die at any moment. That old man, it was himself. That ancient star was the star he was standing on. The Earth Kuan monarch shook his head vigorously. When he opened his eyes again, the scene just now had already disappeared. Was it an illusion? The Earth Kuan monarch suddenly felt a tightness in his chest and took a deep breath instinctively. Even his breathing became extremely difficult. The Earth Kuan monarch seemed to have thought of something and extended his hands instinctively. There was not much flesh left on his palms. They were only skin and bones covered in old wrinkles. My lifespan. The Earth Kuan monarch was horrified and wanted to activate his essence spirit to release a dermic art. However, his essence spirit was already dried up and the blood chi in his body was declining. He no longer had any vitality. Even the Earth Kuan monarch's grand perfection grotto heaven above immortal King Yulan's head had quietly dissipated. Immortal King Yulan heaved a sigh of relief and looked over. At this moment, the Moon Witch King was also looking at the Earth Kuan monarch in horror. Although the Earth Kuan monarch had already left his peak, his lifespan was still at least a few 100,000 years. Although he was a little old, he still maintained his powerful combat strength. At this moment, the Earth Kuan monarch was old and senile. The vitality in his body had dissipated, and his lifespan had been completely exhausted. How could such a huge change happen in such a short time? Although immortal King Yulan and the Moon Witch King were fighting, the two of them had been paying attention to the situation here. The Earth Kuan monarch had already severely injured Sword Realm Su Zhu and was about to kill her when such a strange and terrifying scene suddenly occurred. In the entire process, no one attacked the Earth Kuan monarch at all. However, without any warning, the situation changed drastically. The Earth Kuan monarch suddenly fell into such a miserable state and could no longer survive. How could this be? At this moment, the Earth Kuan monarch seemed to have thought of something. Using the last of his strength, he slowly turned his head. The Earth Kuan monarch looked at Su Zimo, who had been severely injured by his palm and had fallen to the ground. His turbid eyes flickered with indignation as he squeezed out two words from between his teeth. "It's you?" Indeed, no one had attacked him just now. The only person he had come into contact with was only one. A true spirit that he disdained to look at. Immortal King Yulan and the Moon Witch King were also dumbfounded as they looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away, in disbelief. The Earth Kuan monarch had ended up in such a state because of a true spirit? Su Zimo slowly stood up, his face somewhat pale. It had been a long time since he had suffered such serious injuries. After being severely injured by the Earth Kuan monarch's palm force, even the level 12 Qinglian's true body of a true spirit of creation took an extremely long time to recover. Su Zimo looked at the Earth Kuan monarch, who was not far away, and said indifferently, "I have comprehended 9 supreme abilities and only released 8 of them just now. I have been saving this fleeting youth for you." This fleeting youth, which had fused with the morning bell and evening drum, had completely transformed. However, under normal circumstances, this fleeting youth would not be able to threaten a king as long as he had the protection of a grotto heaven. Or perhaps, a king at his peak age could prop up his grotto heaven the moment he sensed the exhaustion of his lifespan and stop it. This was the suppression of one's realm and Dao technique. However, the Earth Kuan monarch was already past his prime and had left his grotto heaven in another battlefield to restrain immortal King Yulan. The reason why Su Zimo had not used Moment of Youth was because he was waiting for such an opportunity. Hearing Su Zimo's words, the Earth Kuan monarch seemed to have thought of something. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he opened his mouth slightly, as if he wanted to say something. You. He. Before the Earth Kuan monarch could finish his last sentence, his lifespan was exhausted, and he collapsed powerlessly on the ground, dead. Just like the Earth Kuan monarch, Immortal King Yulan had also heard the meaning behind Su Zimo's words just now. This fleeting moment of youth has always been reserved for you. In other words, this peak master of the Sword Realm, a true spirit at the Dongshu stage, had been eyeing the Earth Kuan monarch since the very beginning. Not only did this peak master Su want to save someone, but he also wanted to kill someone. Moreover, he wanted to kill a king at the peak. Immortal King Yulan felt her scalp go numb. This Su Zhu really had guts. Even she did not dare to have such thoughts. However, Su Zhu had been eyeing the Earth Kuan monarch from the very beginning, wanting to kill this king at the peak. More importantly, he had succeeded. Chapter 2974. Su Zimo had successfully killed the Earth Rock King, but that didn't mean that he had the battle prowess to challenge a pinnacle king. Moreover, the Earth Rock King's palm strike wasn't easy for him either. Su Zimo tried his best to calm his breathing, relying on the self-healing power of the level 12 creation Qinglian to slowly circulate his qi and blood to heal his injuries. With the death of the Earth Rock King, the situation on the planet immediately changed. The Moon Witch King wanted to retreat. Even if he stayed here, it would be very difficult to kill Immortal King Yulan. As long as he left and spread the news of what happened today, he would be able to bring great trouble to the Sword Realm and the Flower Realm. He wasn't related to the Black Armored Man, so there was no need for him to stay here. The Black Armored Man seemed to have realized that the situation wasn't good, and he looked a little flustered. He was currently at the most critical juncture. If he left now, all his efforts would be in vain. However, if he didn't leave, there would be no one to protect him, and his life might be in danger. At this moment, Su Zhu dragged her heavily injured body into the air. She didn't head towards him, but rather towards the other side of the battlefield. The Black Armored Man heaved a sigh of relief. He hesitated and didn't choose to leave immediately. Immortal King Yulan and the Moon Witch King, who were still fighting, immediately noticed Su Zimo's movements. The same thought flashed through their minds at the same time. What is he going to do? Immortal King Yulan's guess was right. Before Su Zimo made his move, he was already prepared to kill. He didn't just want to kill the 4 ordinary Kuan kings, but also the Earth Rock King and the Moon Witch King. Before Immortal King Yulan made her move, she had countless doubts and worries. She was worried that even if she saved them, they would be plagued with endless troubles in the future. Su Zimo naturally thought of this too. And all his worries could be resolved in one way. That was to kill the 4 ordinary immortal kings, the Black Armored Man, and even the Earth Rock King and the Moon Witch King. He had to eliminate all possible troubles and disasters in advance so as to prevent future troubles. That was why Su Zimo released Qinglian's bloodline without hesitation. The Moon Witch King seemed to have sensed Su Zimo's killing intent and could not help but frown. This heavily injured true spirit still wanted to kill him? This Su Zhu had unleashed 9 supreme divine arts and was severely injured by the Earth Kuan King. How much battle strength did she have left? If it were any other time, this kind of true spirit, he could crush it with a single finger. It was just that with the Earth Kuan King dead, he also did not have the heart to persist in fighting. Hee, the Moon Witch King sneered and said, "The two of you have caused a great disaster. Just wait for the Kuan realm's revenge." His voice hadn't died away when the Moon Witch King and Immortal King Yulan collided head-on once again, and the Moon Witch King seized the opportunity to retreat, intending to leave this place. "Hold him," Su Zimo growled. Even without Su Zimo's reminder, Immortal King Yulan knew how important this matter was. Immortal King Yulan pushed her primordial spirit to the limit. Her qi and blood surged as she chased after him again. The Moon Witch King snorted coldly and said, "Yulan, with your strength alone, you can't hold me back at all." In fact, Immortal King Yulan also knew that if the Moon Witch King wanted to escape this place, with her battle strength, she couldn't hold him back at all. The opposite was also true. If she wanted to leave now, the Moon Witch King couldn't hold her back either. There was indeed a gap between the two's battle strength, but it wasn't to the extent where they could suppress each other. Hold his grotto heaven. At this moment, Su Zimo spoke again. Immortal King Yulan still didn't understand. Even if she held back the Moon Witch King's great perfection grotto heaven with all her strength, what could she do? The most important reason why Su Zimo could kill the Earth Kuan King earlier was that the Earth Kuan King had underestimated him and was not on guard. Now, the Moon Witch King would definitely be on guard. Not to mention that Su Zimo couldn't unleash that supreme divine art that could reduce one's lifespan in a short period of time. Even if he still had the strength to unleash it, the Moon Witch King wouldn't give him the chance to succeed. As a pinnacle king, he naturally knew countless divine arts and secret techniques. Any one of them could break that supreme divine art. Although she was puzzled, Immortal King Yulan still didn't hesitate. She unleashed her full strength and unleashed many secret techniques in succession, temporarily locking down the Moon Witch King's great perfection grotto heaven. The Moon Witch King glanced at Su Zimo, full of mockery and contempt, and sneered, "You're just a true spirit, so you don't understand the battle between kings. So what if you've trapped my grotto heaven? Naive." Immortal King Yulan temporarily held back the Moon Witch King's grotto heaven, which also meant that her grotto heaven was also restricted to where it was and couldn't be used for the time being. She couldn't even be distracted. Once she was slightly distracted, the Moon Witch King's great perfection grotto heaven would break free. And at this moment, the Moon Witch King could leave at any time. Was she going to rely on the heavily injured Su Zimo to stop a pinnacle king? Su Zimo didn't reply. His left eye was pitch black, while his right eye was pure white. Two beams of light, one black and one white, shot out and landed on the Tai horsetail whisk in his hand. The jade handle was the shaft, the silver thread was the hair, and yin and yang were the ink. Su Zimo waved the Tai horsetail whisk, rapidly writing 12 strange characters in the void. The black characters were dark and cold. Ding Mao, Ding Si, Ding Wei, Ding Yu, Ding Hai, Ding Cho. The white characters were blazing with light. Jia Zi, Jia Su, Jia Shen, Jia Wu, Jia Chen, Jia Yin. Book 6 Ding, 6 Jia, Xing Xing, Deities and Ghosts, disband. Su Zimo shouted softly. The next moment, the 12 strange characters rapidly transformed. In the blink of an eye, they transformed into 12 figures with terrifying auras. The black characters transformed into 6 women in black battle armor. They had graceful figures and held battle swords in their hands. The white characters transformed into 6 men in white battle armor. They had tall and sturdy figures and held battle halberds in their hands. More importantly, the auras emanating from these 6 pairs of men and women had already reached the grotto heaven realm. This mystic technique actually originated from the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra. It was also the strongest dermic formulation in the Tai section of the Taboo Mystic Manual, the Technique Repository. Back then, the 9 Heavens Mystic Fairy Emperor had passed down this dermic Tao in the form of 12 talismans, which were obtained by the Academy's patriarch. It was a pity that the 12 talismans were devoured completely when they encountered Su Zimo's illumination and nether glow divine stones. Su Zimo had also used that exchange to comprehend the crux of this mystic technique. The so-called 6 Ding 6 Armor God referred to using the power of Yin and Yang to condense the 6 Ding Yin God and 6 Armor God to fight for oneself. The 6 Ding 6 Armor God that was condensed was closely related to the cultivator's essence spirit realm. Su Zimo released his 8-teeth divine power. His essence spirit realm had already reached the greater mastery of the grotto heaven realm. In other words, the 6 Ding 6 Armor God that he had just condensed was comparable to a peerless king in terms of physical strength. If the Moon Witch King had the protection of a perfected grotto heaven, the 6 Ding 6 Armor God at the greater mastery of the grotto heaven realm might not be a threat to him. However, his greater grotto heaven was temporarily trapped by the Yulan Immortal King. This created the best opportunity for the 6 Ding 6 Armor God to unleash their battle prowess to the extreme. The 6-6 armor god quickly stepped forward and surrounded the Moon Witch King. The Moon Witch King's gaze flickered as he looked at the 12 figures with terrifying auras and murderous auras around him. "Who is the naive one?" Su Zimo asked indifferently. Then, without waiting for the Moon Witch King to reply, he pointed into the distance and said, "Kill." Chapter 2975. In reality, the Luding Liujia god that Su Zimo formed was not a Grotto Heaven realm culmination. This was because the Luding Liujia god had no primordial spirit or bloodline. It only had a body formed by the power of yin and yang. Its physical strength was comparable to that of a peerless king. The Moon Witch King's Grotto Heaven perfection was indeed restrained. However, if his physical body and bloodline were powerful, he could also suppress the Luding Liujia god. After all, there was still a realm between them. However, the Moon Witch King was from the Witch tribe. The Witch tribe's combat power was not ranked low among the 10,000 races. In terms of physical body and bloodline, they were ranked low, about the same as ordinary humans. The reason why the Witch tribe could stand at the forefront of the 10,000 races was because of their many strange witchcraft and evil curses. This was also the Moon Witch King's specialty. However, these witchcraft and curses had no effect on the Luding Liujia god. The Luding Liujia god did not have primordial spirit bloodline. No witchcraft or curses could affect them. This invisible restraint smoothed out the difference between the realms between the two parties. The Moon Witch King released many witchcraft curses consecutively. They landed on the Luding Liujia god but did not cause any ripples. They did not affect the movements of the 12 gods at all. This was not the only strange thing about the Luding Liujia god. Although the Luding Liujia god did not have primordial spirits, these 12 gods seemed to have some remnant memories. They could fight on their own without Su Zimo controlling them. Moreover, the Liujia god and the Luding Yin god cooperated with each other very well. He was cut into 8 pieces. It was as if they had fought sword by side for beyond recognition by the battle
Everything
spear.
was connected
and engraved into their souls.
His perfected
The
Grotto
Liujia
Heaven
god
could
held
not
a
hold
battle
on either.
spear.
Immortal
His attacks
King
were
Yolan's
ferocious
Grotto Heaven
and instantly
powerful.
gained the upper
His
hand
battle
and devoured
techniques
the
were as
Moon
heavy
Witch
as
King's
a
Grotto
mountain.
Heaven. The Luding
Immortal
Yin
King
god
Yulan
held a battle
glanced at the
sword.
minced meat
His attacks
on
were
the ground
soft
and
and
couldn't
agile,
help but shake
his
her head,
sword moves were all
speechless.
pervasive and
The Moon
endless
Witch
like
King
flowing
had
water.
died too
The
tragically.
Liujia god's
Before he
every
could
move
unleash
was
his battle
compatible with
strength,
the power
he
of
was
the sun.
swarmed by a
The
group of
Luding
puppet-like
Yin
men
god's
and
sword
women,
moves were
chopped to
compatible
death
with
with
the
their
power of
blades
the
and
moon.
axes.
The 12
Immortal
gods
King
surrounded
Yulan
the
thought
Moon
to
Witch
herself,
King. The
if she did
Liujia
not
god
have the
was at the
protection of her
forefront.
Grotto
The
Heaven,
white
it
battle
would be
armor on
difficult
his
for her
body
to
emitted
escape
a dazzling
unscathed from
light
this
like a
group of
scorching
men
sun.
and women.
The
Immortal
Luding
King
Yin god's
Yulan
sword
took a
light
deep
was as
look at
bright
Su
as the
Zimo.
moon. The
This
attacks
battle
of the
had
12
once again
deities were a
changed her
combination
understanding
of
of this
hardness
peak
and
Master
gentleness.
Su.
Originally,
The sun and the
her
moon
evaluation
followed
of
suit,
Su
and the
Zimo
combination
was
of
already
yin and
extremely
yang
high.
erupted with the most
After all,
terrifying melee
Su Zimo's
attacks.
battle achievements
Su
in the
Zimo's
evil
eyelids
demon
twitched when he
battlefield were
saw
too
this.
dazzling. With his
But
close
now,
combat
she
strength,
realized that
if he were
this
to be
peak
surrounded
Master
by the
Su's
6
performance
Ding
in
and
the
6
evil
Jia
demon
gods,
battlefield
he would
was
probably
only the
have to
tip of
use
the
his
iceberg.
4 heads and
In a
8
great
arms
battle,
to fight them.
for ordinary
You,
immortal
the
kings
Moon
of the
Witch
Kun
King
race
wanted to say
and two
something,
peak stage
but he did
immortal
not
kings
have the
had
chance
all
to do so.
died in his hands.
In just a few
Although
breaths,
she had played
the
a crucial
Luding
role in
Liujia
this,
Shen had already
she was still
broken through his
extremely
defenses.
shocked by this peak
The battle
Master
spears
Su's
pierced
endless
through his
terrifying
chest
methods
abdomen,
and his
leaving
decisive
behind
nature.
several
How
huge bloody
bold and
holes.
daring did he
The
have to
sharp
be to
swords
plot
left
against
deep
peak stage
wounds on his
immortal
body,
spirits to
so
kill
deep
peak
that his
stage
bones
immortal
could be
kings?
seen.
What was
The Moon
even more
Witch King
terrifying
coughed
was
up
that he
large
had
mouthfuls
actually
of blood,
succeeded.
his
The
expression
6 immortal
horrified.
kings,
He
including
was
the
surrounded
Earth
by
Kun
the
King and the
Luding
Moon Witch
Liujia
King,
Shen and
had
didn't
all
even
died.
have a chance to
All
escape.
her previous
The
worries
attacks
had
of the
vanished
Luding
into thin
Liujia
air.
Shen were endless
Of course,
and
this
impenetrable.
matter was not over yet.
After Su
The battle
Zimo
spear
killed the
stabbed
Moon Witch
forward
King,
and the battle
he turned
sword
around and
slashed
prepared
down.
to deal with
Bloody
the black
light
armored
continued
man.
to surge.
But when he turned
This
around,
great
he let
peak
out a
stage
soft
immortal king of
exclamation
the Witch race
surprise.
was besieged to
It
death
seemed
by
like there
Su
was no
Zimo's
need for
secret
him to
technique.
do anything. The Luding
After the
Liujia
Moon
Shen,
Witch King died,
by the time the
sorcerer
Luding
tribe's
Liujia Shen
runes on the
retreated,
chains on
the
Xiao
Moon
Yao's
Witch
body
King had
also
already
dissipated.
lost his human form.
Without these sorcerer tribe's runes, these chains would not be able to restrain Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao immediately broke free from the chains on his body. The qi and blood in his body surged, and even the hook piercing his shoulder blade was quickly squeezed out. The situation was changing. When the black-armored man saw the Moon Witch King die, he realized that something was wrong and wanted to escape. At the same time, Xiao Yao broke free from the chains. He was horrified to discover that his body seemed to be bound by an invisible force. He could not control it, let alone escape. At this moment, a huge Kun appeared behind Xiaoyao. It was also covered with light spots that connected to form many tracks. This Kun looked similar to the one behind the black-armored man, but its aura was much more ancient, and its body was filled with the vicissitudes of time. Then, a pair of wings grew out of this Kun's body, and it vaguely transformed into the form of a rock. The two forms of the Kun and rock appeared behind Xiaoyao at the same time. The two forms existed at the same time, and the light spots on them were denser. The tracks formed by the light spots intersected with each other. They were densely packed and looked extremely complicated. It was much more mysterious than the painting of the north behind the black-armored man. With the help of the strange image behind him, Xiaoyao's aura gradually changed, and it even revealed a hint of a heart-palpitating aura. This aura even caused the Qinglian bloodline in Su Zimo's body to ripple. The painting of the north was a secret technique of the Kun race that was not passed down. Only the Kun race could cultivate it. By cultivating the painting of the north, the Kun race could possess a powerful devouring power. The black-armored man was using the painting of the north to forcefully devour the yin and yang energy in Xiaoyao's body and steal his rock bloodline. Now, when Xiaoyao broke free from the chains and the rock image appeared behind him, the situation suddenly changed. A terrifying devouring power burst out from Carefree's body. Before the black-armored man could react, Xiaoyao had devoured the black-armored man's bloodline, true yuan, and even his Dao fruit in the blink of an eye. End of chapter. Chapter 2976. Carefree was only at the heavenly human stage of the True One stage. However, when he broke free from the shackles, something seemed to have happened in his body. His Kunpeng bloodline was activated, and a majestic Kunpeng diagram appeared behind him. It instantly reversed and devoured the Dongshu stage man. Of course, bloodline suppression was part of the reason. However, even the Kunpeng bloodline could not erupt with such a terrifying devouring power. The wisp of aura that Carefree had just leaked out even made Su Zimo's 12th grade creation Qinglian bloodline ripple. In fact, when the creation Qinglian had grown to the peak of 12th grade, Su Zimo had not encountered a situation where his bloodline was suppressed. Even when facing the dragon race and the god race, which were at the top of the 10,000 races, his bloodline did not feel any pressure at all. Back then, Su Zimo had fallen to the bottom of the Blood Fiend Lake in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain's Shura battlefield and had obtained a white tiger bone. When he absorbed and refined this white tiger bone, even the white tiger bloodline could not suppress Qinglian's bloodline. Carefree was indeed a forbidden Kunpeng. However, the Kunpeng had not reached the level where it could compete with a holy beast bloodline like the white tiger.
Therefore, what surprised Su Zimo was that the bloodline aura that overflowed from Carefree's body just now could actually cause his Qinglian bloodline to ripple. Xiao Yao had enough time to continue cultivating and comprehending Tao and the moon, he would be able to refine and absorb the huge amount of energy in his body. He had heard the conversation between the Kun King and the moon about Xiao Yao clearly, but now was not the time to talk about the past. He had never heard of the term atavism. Let's leave here first. Do you know about atavism? Said in a fellow deep voice. Taoist Yulan? The black armored man earlier on was of the arch, and his death would definitely alarm the imperial lord as she cleaned up the battlefield. The longer they stayed here, the more dangerous it would be for them. Witch King. Su Zimo and Immortal King Yulan discussed for a while and decided to head to the flower world first. Yulan handed over their grotto heavens and send the Hellspring water back to the flower world as soon as possible. Shook his head and refused, now that Su Zimo was severely injured, holding them back, it would be too dangerous for him to bring Kitsune and Xiao Yao back from the four Kun race kings. Furthermore, the flower world was closer to this place. Kun race kings grotto heavens and storage bags after they arrived at the flower world and recovered from their injuries. Fellow Taoist Immortal King Yulan summoned her immortal bows and carried everyone into the spatial paradises disappearing from the day and night land and speeding towards the flower world. If she didn't have any heaven-defying fortuitous encounters, the starry sky was deep. The grotto heavens of two peak kings. A huge shadow shrouded over, covering the grotto heavens. Immediately after, two gigantic eyes had already come out of their hiding place, emitting a shuddering aura as they surveyed the surroundings. Carefree's face was flushed, and he landed on an ancient star. He looked dizzy and unconscious. One could still vaguely see traces of battle and remnant bloodline surprise and joy. How dare you kill my son? Kitsune's deep voice reverberated through the starry sky. She supported Xiao Yao and asked, "That pair of eyes was filled with endless rage and killing intent." Xiao Yao answered in a daze, scanned the surroundings for a long time, trying to find clues to him and said, "He's only at the heavenly being after a long time, but he just absorbed a lot of energy." A moment later, not only did he devour the true spirit of the Dongshu stage cultivator, and devoured the star before vanishing gradually. Yin and yang energy. Terrifying aura also disappeared along with it. More than 10 days later, Xiao Yao's body would have exploded at the flower world. It was because Immortal King Yulan's bloodline was too special that it could accommodate so much energy. In fact, the spring water this energy was enough for Xiao Yao to break through to the Dongshu stage. Everyone to the 100 Flowers Hall of the flower world, especially after the heavenly being stage, pondered for a moment and said, not only did one need to accumulate energy, but they also needed to have enough understanding of Tao. Fellow Taoist Su, Xiao Yao's body was enough, but his understanding of Tao was still lacking. As long as I report the truth, the flower world will definitely reward you handsomely. Su Zimo glanced at Carefree, who was still unconscious, and shook his head slightly. My disciple has a special identity. Please help me hide it and don't leak it, fellow Taoist. Carefree was the only clue about the death of the black-armored man. Once his identity and bloodline were exposed, it would definitely attract the imperial lords of the Kun race. Immortal King Yulan knew how powerful it was and said, "Fellow Taoist Su, don't worry about that." After pausing for a moment, Su Zimo continued, "As for the trip to the day and night land this time round, please don't mention Dark North and I, Immortal King Yulan." Immortal King Yulan frowned slightly and asked, "Fellow Taoist Su, what are you worried about?" Su Zimo remained silent. There were some guesses that he could neither clarify nor explain to Immortal King Yulan. It was just a precaution. Immortal King Yulan pondered for a moment before nodding. "No problem. However, I'm the only one who knows about this favor. Immortal King Yulan cupped his fists before turning to leave. Chapter 2977. After a few days, news came from the flower world that the danger of the nether calamity was temporarily resolved. After being unconscious for a few days, Carefree slowly woke up. However, Carefree's condition was still very bad. There was too much energy accumulated in his body. With his current cultivation, it was difficult for him to digest it. His face was red and he was a little delirious. The aura in his body was extremely violent. Over the past few days, Su Zimo's body that was severely injured by a Peak King had already recovered thanks to the recovery capabilities of the Grade 12 creation Green Lotus. Su Zimo checked on Carefree's condition. Carefree wasn't injured, so the Lotus Finger was useless against him. Only by guiding the yin and yang energy in Carefree's body could he turn the situation around. It could even be a blessing in disguise. I have a scripture here. Listen carefully and comprehend it according to the inherited memories of your race. In the cave, Su Zimo passed the scripture of the yin-yang talisman scripture to Carefree. Kitsune also listened at the side. The yin-yang talisman scripture only had 600 words. Even Su Zimo had only comprehended 1/10 of it. If it was someone else, they might not be able to comprehend it in a short time even if they heard the scripture. However, Carefree had the Kuan-Peng bloodline and inherited the memories of the Kuan-Peng race. He was born with the ability to control yin and yang energy. After hearing the scripture, Carefree's aura gradually stabilized. The yin-yang talisman scripture combined with his inherited memories helped him resolve the crisis. The Kuan-Peng diagram filled with light dots appeared behind Carefree again. Bai Mingshui looked at the Kuan-Peng painting and couldn't help but recall the Northern Sea painting she saw on that star. She fell into deep thought. Immediately after, Carefree's body emitted that ancient and terrifying bloodline aura again. It was even purer and stronger than when he was on that ancient planet. The yin-yang talisman scripture was of great help to Carefree. It even pushed his bloodline one step further on the path of atavism. Su Zimo saw that Carefree's condition had stabilized and let out a sigh of relief. These days, he was not in a hurry to leave. He discovered that the Qinglian clan on the Qinglian planet had a weak bloodline and a slow cultivation speed.
When he cultivated on the Qinglian star, he would attract a large amount of heaven and earth yuan qi and gather it around the Qinglian star. If the Qinglian clan cultivated by his side, they would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. In reality, as long as a plant being cultivated by his side, they would receive unimaginable benefits. Cultivating on Qinglian planet for a period of time could be considered to have brought some opportunities to the living beings on Qinglian planet. 1 month later, Carefree had already recovered to 70 to 80%. "Thank you, Master." Carefree ran to Su Zimo, his face full of joy. Although he hadn't made a breakthrough in his realm, his body had grown several times in a short period of time with the guidance of the Yin-Yang charm scripture and his own inherited memories. Carefree's body was originally like a lake. The lake was naturally unable to contain the sudden influx of torrential water. But now, Carefree's body was like an ocean that could contain all the rivers flowing into the sea. Next, as long as Carefree continued to cultivate and comprehend Dao techniques, he would have a chance to make consecutive breakthroughs and enter the Dongshu realm. "What did you experience after ascending?" Seeing that Carefree was fine, Su Zimo asked. Xiao Yao recounted everything that had happened to him after he ascended to the immortal realm. Carefree's luck was not bad. After ascending, he directly landed in the Kuan realm. However, he was very careful and never exposed his Kuan Peng bloodline. He was almost kneeling on the ground, and his bloodline had stopped circulating. This was the suppression of bloodline. Although he was from the Dragon Clan, in the face of the Azure Dragon Clan's bloodline, he still involuntarily chose to submit. "Oh!" Emperor Qin Yan's gaze fell on Dragon Emperor Huang Hai. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Only now do you want to submit?" Hearing this, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai's heart skipped a beat, and he broke out in cold sweat. "Lord Qin Yan, I know my mistake." Dragon Emperor Huang Hai hurriedly kowtowed and admitted his mistake. Great Peng Demon Emperor and Chaos Demon Emperor beside him were also trembling in fear. Emperor Qin Yan's aura was too strong. Although they were only one level apart, their combat strength was worlds apart. Emperor Qin Yan could easily tear Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and the other two to pieces. Emperor Qin Yan did not speak. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and the other two were so scared that they did not dare to look up. They were sweating profusely as they endured the silent torture. After a while, Emperor Qin Yan chuckled and said, "It's good that you know your mistake. I'll give you a chance." "I won't let you down, Lord Qin Yan," Dragon Emperor Huang Hai said quickly. Emperor Qin Yan walked into the hall and sat in the middle. He then said calmly, "Rise." Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and the rest lowered their heads as if they had been pardoned. They moved to the hall. "Where's 9-in?" Emperor Qin Yan looked around and asked, "Why are there fewer demon emperors?" The Spirit Horn Demon Monarch quickly recounted the battle that took place 800 years ago in detail. As soon as Spirit Horn Demon Emperor finished, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai said, "Lord Qin Yan, Great Peng, Kuei Niu, and I did not participate in that battle. When fellow cultivator Spirit Horn and the rest were running, retreating, we even stopped Araki Takashi and the others from chasing after them." Back then, when Dragon Emperor Huang Hai stood aside, he had already thought of this scene. If he had killed the living beings of Tsang continent that day, it would be difficult to explain to Emperor Qin Yan now. He might even lose his life. Actually, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai was overthinking it. To Emperor Qin Yan, the living beings of the vast wilderness were like ants to him. No matter how many of them died, he did not care. However, Demon Emperor 9-in was from Tsang continent after all and was once his subordinate. "Araki Takashi?" Emperor Qin Yan murmured expressionlessly. "Lord Qin Yan." Dragon Emperor Huang Hai said in a deep voice, "This Araki Takashi is nothing to be afraid of. In this battle, I will personally avenge 9-in. I will cut off Araki Takashi's head and give it to Lord Qin Yan." Great Peng Demon Emperor also said, "Lord Qin Yan will definitely be able to kill Shui Dai and conquer the eastern wilderness." "Kill Shui Dai?" Emperor Qin Yan smiled and shook his head. "What do you know?" Chapter 2981. This punch contained Wu Dao's techniques and Wu Dao's will. With an unstoppable aura, it pierced through the heavens and shattered everything. The numerous oncoming golden arrows were all broken. Great Rock Demon Emperor felt an extremely tragic aura coming towards him, almost suffocating him. There was nowhere to run. This fist technique, this power, should not exist in this world. Great Rock Demon Emperor raised his arms and pushed his bloodline to the limit, forming a bloodline vision behind him. A golden winged rock shone brightly and spread its wings, pouncing towards Wu Dao's original body. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion shook the earth and mountains. Flesh and blood splattered and bones were broken. Great Rock Demon Emperor's bloodline vision was destroyed by Wu Dao's original body with a single punch. His arms were unable to withstand this punch and were instantly blasted apart, turning into a cloud of blood mist. The power from Wu Dao's original body's punch surged into Great Rock Demon Emperor's body, destroying his vitality. Great Rock Demon Emperor wailed and his golden wings fell off as he retreated rapidly. On the other side, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai's dragon claw also descended. Wu Dao's original body was fearless against two enemies. He threw a backhand punch at the ferocious dragon claw. Bang! Dragon Emperor Huang Hai let out a blood-curdling scream as his giant dragon claw was shattered into pieces. The tremendous impact had even turned his dragon body into a bloody mess. In close combat, no one could withstand Wu Dao's original body's punch. Boom! Boom! The two peerless demon emperors did not dare to hesitate and immediately held up their own worlds. In their own worlds, they quickly recovered their vitality and healed their injuries. Wu Dao's original body's eyes were deep and unfathomable. He did not give them a chance to catch their breaths. Wu Dao's original body released Wu Dao's purgatory. Almost instantly, it enveloped a large area of the battlefield. Not only Dragon Emperor Huang Hai, Great Rock Demon Emperor, Spirit Horn Demon Emperor, Fei Lian Demon Emperor, Huodou Demon Emperor, and more than 10 other peerless demon emperors were all trapped in Wu Dao's purgatory. In an instant, raging flames soared into the sky. 800 years ago, the perfected Wu Dao's purgatory was able to burn and refine many lesser mastery worlds. Now that Wu Dao's purgatory had improved, even the greater mastery worlds of many peerless demon emperors could not withstand it. Among the peerless demon emperors, there were differences in strength. Some peerless demon emperors' worlds that could not even last for a few breaths' time. Without the protection of the world, the flesh and blood of the peerless Fei Emperor could not withstand the power of the purgatory of martial arts and was quickly burned to ashes. Peerless monarch beasts like Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Monarch Dupeng were barely holding on. They kept unleashing their force of the realm to resist the martial purgatory. Charge out, or we'll all die here. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai roared. More than 10 peerless demon emperors who were trapped in the purgatory joined forces and unleashed streams of majestic world energy to attack the barrier of Wu Dao's purgatory. Boom! 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 Wu Dao's purgatory kept shaking. Mysterious runes appeared on the barrier, condensing endless Dao and laws. It was not that easy to break through Wu Dao's purgatory. In the process, another 2 peerless demon emperors died in the Sea of Flames. Divine Elephant Demon Emperor and Nine-Tailed Demon Emperor were also trapped. However, under the control of Wu Dao's original body, the flames in the purgatory did not cause any harm to them. Divine Elephant Demon Emperor and Nine-Tailed Demon Emperor were shocked. Their battle strength could be ranked among the top among the peerless demon emperors. Even so, his body could not withstand it. Dragon scales kept falling off and in the blink of an eye, he was covered in wounds. This Crimson Moon Storm would also cause great damage to Dai Yu's body. Wounds had already appeared on Dai Yu's wings. Blood flowed out, making the wings even redder. They were like 2 blood-colored full moons hanging from 2 wings, staring at Emperor Azure Flame opposite them. "Come and help me!" Emperor Green Flame roared. Actually, he did not need to remind them. The remaining 5 constellation demon emperors had already transformed into their true bodies and held up their perfect worlds to block the storm. Under the Crimson Moon Storm, there was no pure land in the starry sky.
Under the blood-colored moonlight, the storm was everywhere. All living beings had to bear the baptism of the endless storm. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.